Going on, everybody? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this. We are at the finale, the conclusion, final episode of SCP-001 Black Adytum, and what is currently the finale of the Red Tape series. I feel like there's going to be more, but who knows? We'll see. See if Rounder House gets around to doing another arc, which I would love to see. It feels like there should be another arc that gets into more of the origin story of the Black Star / Abominant, which would also technically, I guess, be the origin story of the Foundation. And it would be interesting because, like, what we've seen right now has been kind of mostly about the history of these factions in the past and how they're coming alive in the present. So I feel like we kind of need that for, again, with the Foundation. And then that would then leave another series open for what could be happening in present time afterwards. You know, we get the history and the reawakening of the Mechanites, the Sarkics, and the Davites, along with the origin and history of the Foundation, you know, in this Red Tape series. And it finishes with that, you know, origin of the Black Star and the Foundation, and why they can, you know, what is the reasoning behind their trying to contain all of these things, etc. You know, and then after that wraps up, that could potentially open things up for another series, you know, going into the present time and starting the new occult war, you know, because that's kind of what some of the foreshadowing has been going on with here with this, is a new occult war brewing. You know, the first occult war was this ancient war between these 3/4 factions. So, and there's been, you know, several occult wars in between, but from my understanding, they haven't really been necessarily like a big topic or, you know, any kind of real articles done on them. It's just been something that's kind of been talked about in the background. So I wonder if that is what he's building up to. This is all kind of a prehistory, not necessarily, I guess, prehistory, but, you know, a prequel or a building up to a new occult war, giving us kind of the origin of these factions, kind of what happened between them, and then, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I've really been enjoying the series so far, so I guess let's just jump into it here and see what happens in the finale. So links, as always, will be down below in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction to the Exploring Series channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this video of his, be sure to go over there, give it a like, hit that sub button on his channel if you haven't already. If you enjoy his content, he makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe, as well as others. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live, as I am right now with my YouTube members, there's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So check those out if you want to take your support to the next level. And if you enjoy this video of mine with my commentary and reaction, consider leaving a like and a subs. It helps me and the channel grow, and lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see some more. So, with all that said, jump into the video here with the finale of SCP-001 Black Adytum and the current finale of this Red Tape series.
SCP-001 Black Adytum, Part 6. The path of the bone is finally complete, and Adytum and company have made it to Black Adytum, buried under the earth. The agreement between the Sarkic and the Foundation has been increasingly tentative, especially with the Foundation arriving at the site before them to begin digging around.
Yep.
It's then shown that Xenophon's memory of their trip down has been blocked, but it manages to recover the memories with Adytum's help. We'll now finally get to see what occurred down there and what the future holds.
Dun dun
Let's continue.
dun.
We pick things up with Adytum recalling her memories, with all of her memories from her life beginning to jumble together. She is standing on the edge of an abyss, a gaping black wound in the earth. This is the locus, what they have been hurtling towards without control or hesitation. She looks to her left, seen Xenophon's face and says that there's so much wisdom and care veiled behind steel and titanium.
Hmm.
It is a little deception. Her little deception. She then recalls 4,500 years ago, in the 9th turning, with Adytum lying before her. 100 stone-carved buildings sitting in a hand-dug quarry, the canals running red with blood. Luvatar is next to her, blood dripping from his soft bearded cheeks, with a wild grin on his face as their people rush down the quarry side, blades and spears raised. He says that they have done it, and they are free. She then says that she is standing outside time, the memories all coming at once in an unstoppable rush. The present is happening before her, and the future soaks into her skin on the fumes of cracking bones. Everything is always happening. Everything has already happened, and everything will happen. Xenophon is looking at her with concern, and it is 3 hours from now, the two kissing. Of course, it doesn't know that, so she smiles and reassures it that she is fine. It accepts that. Its fellows do not trust her, as the other doctors eye her like a dog. There are a dozen masked men with guns following them as they descend into the darkness. The woman with the metal arm, Katsaros, leads the group, and Yeva is bristling at the affront to her dignity and honor. It is then 30 years prior, Yeva sitting in her lap under the shade of the pear tree. There are the countless shards of an ox bone in the valley of her dress. Ayun whispers in her ear and takes her hands, and she follows, the fragments of bone beginning to fit and knit themselves back together, the thousands of meaningless scratches suddenly forming words. Her eyes widen, and her laughter is sweet like grapes, with Ayun giggling as well. Somewhere else, the work begins. She is descending into the pit, and the light from overhead fades with every step until they are bathed in darkness. She does not slow, as she has walked these same steps 1,000 times before, and she will walk them 1,000 times yet. She knows the placement of every nook and chip in every stone step, and she remarks that the things we choose to remember are strange. As the party descends into the staircase, the light from the surface grows dimmer and dimmer, and the noise of the wind fades. The only sounds left are breathing from the assembled researchers and security personnel, as well as Ayun's footsteps. Hussein asks if she knows where they're going, but Xenophon just replies that there is only one direction to go. The faint light finally gives way to pitch black, but Ayun's footsteps do not slow down. Katsaros tells everyone to turn on their lights, bathing the narrow staircase in white light. The stone steps they are walking on have been worn smooth by time and use, but are irregular in size and shape. Ayun is moving down them with practiced ease, and Hussein asks what's wrong with her. Ayun's eyes are glassy, flickering between clear and foggy. As the party progresses down the stairs, she reaches a hand out and rubs her fingers along the smooth stone wall, furrowing her brow.
I again, wonder if past Ayun, that consciousness is, taking over present Ayun, or if the two of them are, battling at the moment. Or if she's going through a scenario where, she's, half present, because, as we're going, he's telling us, of her recounting memories and that she's standing outside of time and, kind of seeing all of these things. So it could just be that as well, but I kind of feel like past Ayun's consciousness might be taking her over.
She says that there are carvings here, or there were carvings here. Xenophon stops to inspect the wall, although the others don't, and it says that it can see beneath the surface, and she's right. There are the faintest remnants of inscriptions and carvings spreading across the walls. They are far too weathered to make out, rubbed away by the ravages of time into one smooth, flat mess. Adytum says that these are thousands of memories, thousands of lives, carved by countless artisans sitting on these steps, all lost to time. There is a twinge of awe in her voice as she sees the wall as it was, not as it is now. Xenophon cocks its head and asks what they are. Adytum's fingers trace edges of reliefs that have not been there for centuries, as Hussein says that there's nothing there now and they should continue. The soldiers are similarly disinterested, but Xenophon ignores them, asking Adytum what they are carvings of. She simply replies that they are of everything, and her fingers slide across the walls, tracing heads, bodies, and people, rendered in 2 dimensions.
Interesting. So, I mean, yeah, it's just them. I have a lot of different, like, thoughts going in my mind, about this. This is kind of like referencing. Like, could this be kind of also saying that certain old kind of cave drawings in certain areas could also just be stuff from the Sarkics? There's also, ancient civilizations that have been buried kind of like in real life, like Göbekli Tepe and stuff like that have all kinds of crazy depictions. Could this be something that's kind of like similar like that with the Sarkics, where, they might have had various artisans depict their, like, civilization's history on this wall, as like their chronicle of their civilization, their history, kind of a thing? Or is it more than that? I don't know, but that's interesting.
3,000 years ago, Adytum was here, sitting before a blank wall with Luvatar. The work has only just begun, her people seeking healing from their battles with the last pockets of resistance. They are both busy with their duties to this experiment, but they will take their moments together when they can get them. She raises a finger, skin and sinew and muscle peeling back to reveal a razor-sharp bone. He is smiling while she carves their names into the wall, and she tells him that they will be here forever. Her fingers find no purchase across the smooth stone, as there are no carvings left to identify. This place is already in the past, and in 20 minutes her feet are touching the bottom of the staircase. Yesterday she is spilling blood onto Xenophon's chassis, staining it, her lips against metal, marking it as hers. She is the happiest she has been in centuries. Yeva is fiddling with the shards of bone, brow furrowing with frustration as they refuse to knit. She is watching from across the fire, but she cannot help her. She must learn how to do this on her own. She will thank her one day. They are now landing at the base of the grand staircase, exiting out of a doorway. Adytum hears shocked gasps from the scientists, a gape at the space in which they find themselves, a massive cavern with ceiling high overhead, brick avenues wrapping around the buried stone buildings in this city grave.
Yeah, so again, like, is this whole thing a giant cycle that keeps repeating itself, Yeah.
A great central tower, terraced with the flesh gardens, now bare. She is at the top of the tower, looking down on her city and her people. She is at the base of the tower, looking up at herself, one claw raised in tyranny. Luvatar is next to her, hand on her robed shoulder. They have stolen a city from the masters, he whispers, and they can build something grand here, something great to outlast them. She looks down at the city spread out like a map before her, her null.
Could it also be a situation too where there's like 2 Adytums? Because if we remember back in the story, it sounds like Adytum at some point may have gone through a ritual to kind of strip her humanity, her humanity from themselves. And then, we got the story of the dock, I believe, one of the Clavigars, fleeing the city with a baby. And then I think all of the Clavigars kind of going after them, and then Ayun, chasing after them as well and killing Luvatar. So is it a situation where maybe there's actually like a cycle of two Ayuns? One, is devoid of its humanity, using the necromancy and all that kind of stuff, and Yaldabaoth in a way to try to destroy these other civilizations to free her people, etc., from any kind of threats. And then there's also the Ayun that is left with the humanity, and there's like a cycle of them coming into power, and so there's shifts in theology and their Sarkic theology. Like, it could very well be that literally like the Nalkas and the Sarkics are two different civilizations based around two different Ayuns. The Nalkans are like the civilization that's based around Ayun that has no humanity, and the Sarkics are based around the Ayun that is, about humanity, and they could have this like revolving situation between them. I don't know. I wonder if that's something that's going on too.
Walking like ants, and she agrees. This will be the site of something magnificent one day. She is looking around, and there is nothing here but the accursed dead. She hears the sound of rushing water, and the soldiers begin to spread out among the boulevards. The cave is vast, but imperfect, with whole blocks of the city buried under silt and soil. Whole blocks of the city flow with blood as her Nalka rush forth, slaughtering their slavers. One soldier peers over the edge and calls out. Water still rushes through the underground canals. She is watching from one side of the canal as Nadak descends into the dry gulch, a dozen arms using his knotted rope to make measurements. The old masters were close, he assured her with a toothy smile after seeing her observing. They simply didn't understand the angle of flow well enough. Soon these ducts will work to bring water from the mountainside to the city, as siege will not break them. She is standing at the edge of the wall of Adytum, and she is alone. Over the lip, there is a grand black army with a godling at its head. He does not want to destroy her, but unlike her, he only exists in the past. He is a slave to his veiled future, and he does not want to destroy her, but he will, because the black moon hanging over him has wished him to bring siege on Adytum, and men are only pieces in the games of gods. She turns over her shoulder to tell Nadak he was right, that water continues to flow, that siege will not be the thing to break them. But he is still stuck in the past, holding his knotted rope, and she is already beyond him. She is watching the Foundation's people spread out, boots slamming against the stone bricks of her city streets. She hears a cry, and they move in unison. She will arrive before them, because she is already there. It is Yeva, hand over her mouth, and before her is a crowd, frozen and cowering in terror, cast in solid gray and features smooth to nothing. Ayun is looking at them, families, mothers and fathers and children, the few that remained and did not depart when her Clavigars did, terrified as they watch the sky fall on them. 3,000 years ago, she reaches out to graze her finger against the nearest, a child gasping in fear. Now he falls apart, crumbling to dust in front of their party.
Oh, we're getting some
The doctor's
Thanos snapping
eyes
going on here.
and they mutter amongst each other about ashen casts, like Pompeii. Someone filled these after the city was destroyed. She is using huge arms to lovingly pack plaster ash into the gaps of decaying bodies. She is alone in this city, wandering streets she used to rule, now bathed in total blackness. 2,000 years ago, she passes by the ashen cast of one of her Karsus. She begs and pleads, desperate to know that she did the right thing. Now, the silence is their answer. Yeva's eyes are wide, looking to her for answers, and so are Urok's, right beside her, millennia apart. She does not know which to answer, and so she turns away from both. The party surrounds the cast, with some of the researchers collecting samples, picking away the edges of these forms, and the security personnel watch them. Xenophon says that they should keep moving, and Katsaros agrees, as they have a lot farther to go. Xenophon thinks to itself that that is not why it suggested they keep moving, as the personnel are disturbed and on edge. It is concerned that they will become nervous and do something rash. Adytum is on edge as well, her breath hitching as she avoids making eye contact with anyone. It asks her if she would like to go somewhere else, and she nods, turning down one of the large avenues, away from the casts. It follows, and they walk down the brick-lined street together, with ruins of buildings on either side. Some are nearly complete, with only the odd collapsed wall or sunken roof. Some are completely destroyed, a heap of clay bricks, the only evidence that anything was there. Adytum is leaning into Xenophon as they walk, eyes downcast, and it tries to think of how to distract her. It points at one of the larger ruins, asking her what it is, and a smile dances across her face. She explains that that's the Red Temple for distributing alms and food to the masses. It was a shrine to one of the Deva's animal spirits before they took it over. The Deva would sacrifice animals and burn the offal as offerings, and they had 7 such temples throughout the city. Nadak and her hatched a plan, as instead of sacrificing the animals, they would be butchered, and her Karsus would spread the meat amongst those who lived nearby. They could cover the entire city with such districts. Xenophon calls it an intelligent plan, making sure her people are fed and healthy, and Adytum replies that Nadak was always smarter than she is. His mind worked differently, in numbers and figures rather than memories and verses. He saw things as problems waiting for a solution. Xenophon asks what happened to the temples in the end, and Adytum says that she began asking them to kneel to receive their food. It then asks what happened if they refused to, but she doesn't answer. They pass by the far end of the temple, where there is a pit dug into the earth behind it. 3,000 years ago, Luvatar is kneeling and asking Adytum which temple they will demolish to make more room for the charnel houses. She waves him off with a hand. 200 years later, she is driving a dagger into his chest, and he is holding her, and they are both sobbing by the seaside. In 2.5 hours, she is sobbing in agony. They are walking up her favorite boulevard, lined by flesh gardens, those ropey, weeping trees of sinew and muscle she cultivates and raises, molded with her fingers and watered with her blood. Nadak asks her what their purpose is, as they never lived more than a few years. She smiles, raises a finger, and speaks divine truth. To be flesh is to die. Xenophon cocks its metal head, nods, and stares at the empty pots of soil and meal. This was to be a grand city, to rival the great capitals. Their slaves were builders, artisans, musicians, and constructors. The old masters relied on them to build their home, and so the Deva's home became the Nalka's home, and their home became their tomb. The reliefs against the wall still stand, however, and the pillars holding up temple roofs still stand. No man, woman, or child in Adytum ever went hungry or wanted for necessities. She made sure of it, she tells Xenophon. She is staring from her balcony as the apostate's army surrounds the gates out of the city, setting fire to their farms, catapults sending burning pitch over the walls. Her dead Holocaust holds the line, but for how long? Her people will starve without food. She looks down and realizes that the Holocaust are the only ones in the streets. There is nothing alive in this place aside from her. And Xenophon, of course. They are sheltered from the prying eyes of the soldiers. Its hand reaches out slightly, fingers wrapped.
It's interesting. So it's like, yeah, she's gone through all this trouble to save her people in the city, but there are no people left. It's just the undead. She's the only one left alive, like she's saying here, There are no other living people. But it also sounds like the city itself was formed from her people, So as long as the city stands, her people stands. Like, is this where that's going, kind of a situation?
Around hers. Her palm presses against its, and she marvels at how thin her fingers seem compared to its metal digits. Man is flawed by nature, so it is a wonder he created something as perfect as it. Centuries ago, she is standing underneath a wall, kissing Luvatar and telling him the same. It asks where they are going, and she does not know how to explain that she is already there. They are standing in the doorway of a stone building like any other. She utters a silent prayer to herself. Nadak turns to them, raising 2 of a dozen arms in greeting, and he lifts her up and wraps her in a hug. To him, she will always be a child. He excitedly shows her on the chalkboard how he has cracked the formula that mystified the Deva until their timely deaths. She does not understand any of it. 2 months ago, she is sitting by the fire while Xenophon explains how its brain is a model of a mind, little mathematics performing so many computations that it seems like thought. She does not understand any of it, but she enjoys hearing it talk. The researchers and soldiers file in after them, pointing at the shelves stacked with carefully inscribed bones and crumbling hide scrolls. In 2.5 hours, they will be running for their lives. She would tell them, but they can do nothing with the knowledge. Time moves forward.
It's kind of weird following this a little bit because, we're getting flashbacks of the past, and then they're talking in the present, and then occasionally we're getting visions of what's going to happen, I don't know, it's a little strange how this is all piecing together. It's interesting, though, trying to see it from Ayun's perspective, where she's seeing past, present, and future kind of all at the same time. I don't know, it's weird.
Only forward for them. Nadak's excited hands drift across the chalkboards, moving variables into place, canceling sums. Forward, forward, he explains to her, and the numbers dance across his delighted eyes, but to her they are devoid of all meaning. She asks him why they cannot go back, and he exclaims that you cannot go backwards. She asks what comes at the end then, and he only looks at her in confusion. 8 centuries later, she is watching him bundle his favorite tomes and slip away through a crack in the wall, casting fearful looks over his shoulder as he leaves Adytum behind. In a minute, Xenophon is running its hands across his collection of shattered bone texts. Nadak's fingers are rubbing these markings as he shows them to her, explaining that even the old masters could not conquer death. that some things are inevitable, unstoppable, uncontrollable. She tosses a cold look at him from her throne and informs him that if the gods are not uncontrollable, then nothing is. This city is a grand thing, and it will work if they would only listen to her. She screams at him that she is not a child anymore, but she is a child, small and thin, shivering in his many-armed embrace during the cold nights in the slave camp. She reaches up, and her little fingers graze.
So, I mean, like, how is it a situation where that could be, right? Nadak is made from her. You know, Ayun gave Nadak the many arms and eyes, etc., because he ate of her flesh, etc. How could she also then be a child in his arms in a slave camp, embraced in his many arms? Unless these are memories being confused, or again, unless this is multiple different lives, one of Ayun without the humanity, one with, kind of a thing. You know, I don't know.
His empty eye sockets. She looks down, and his 10 eyes are filled with hurt and betrayal as he slips through the walls. Xenophon's eye is filled with interest, trust, and faith as she places a malformed skull before the chalkboards. The formulas have long since been rubbed away into a single white cloud. Xenophon assures her to do what she needs to, and she would reach up to hold it if they were alone. Instead, she reaches down and kisses the skull. 10 minutes in her past, she makes a prayer. Nadak is before her, leaning against a stack of tomes. He turns, notices something wrong on the board, fishes a piece of chalk out of his robes, and corrects it. He nods.
So I wonder also, is this like a situation where because she's seeing all these different things, she's actually traveling through time and manipulating things in these different periods, right? Like, is she essentially like, she went into a future, saw this formula that, you know, Nadak wasn't able to solve, went to the past and gave him the information he needed to solve it in a different timeline? Like, is she also just seeing different, like, multiversal things happening right now?
And smiles at her. There are multitudes in that smile, lifetimes of history, and now she is done. He turns, slips between the shelves, and he is gone. Ayun is standing before an altar at the front of the study, beside what might have once been chalkboards. Xenophon is next to her, looking into her eyes, cold and gray. There are tears welling in the corners, and it cannot see what she sees, but it is not difficult to guess. Xenophon tells her not to cry, and she looks up at it. It can see the question in her gaze. How? It doesn't have an answer, and it wishes that it did, but the others are starting to stare. She bites her lip and draws the tears back, thanking Xenophon. There is a staircase in the workshop, descending deeper into the earth. Xenophon guides the group towards it, as there is nowhere to go but deeper. Ayun does not know how long they walk, but she knows that Xenophon is behind her every step. In 2 hours, she is racing up these same steps. She waits to pass by herself, but it never happens. They are at the bottom, and some of the soldiers light their lamps. Luvatar's hand grips hers as they stare out over the catacombs of the nameless city. Tunnels, 6 men wide and tall, worming through the stone earth, cut with pigeonholes ready for sacrifices. They have already sacrificed so much. They will fill these spaces with the bones of their fallen, he says, such that they might never forget what they gave, the last full measure of devotion, of faith. They wander by one of the pigeonholes, The empty
This is kind of reminding me of like Elden Ring in a way, right? With the whole divine tower that the Horn Scent built, and it was made from either their people or perhaps America's people, the sages, you know, etc. And then of course the Nox doing something similar in their, you know, underground city of the night, where it was all built from, you know, bones and ashes and bodies of others. Very interesting.
emptiness is sobering. 4 millennia later, every single hole is filled with countless bones, jumbled into unsorted masses, skulls and legs and fingers overflowing out onto the tunnel floor. Too many pass to count. The woman with the metal arm will begin to call for reinforcements to map the tunnels. Adytum is already moving, heading down the path most familiar. The group trails behind, leaving soft green glowing sticks to mark their path. Sa'arn is making his way through the same path, slithering through the torchlit tunnels. His face is sour, as she has called him to task again. She regrets it, but it must be done. In 20 seconds, she is sharply turning left down a narrow side tunnel. Sa'arn's services are needed, and she is telling herself this until she believes it. The doctor's eyes are boring into her back while they walk, eyebrows rising as they turn sharply. Centuries ago, Luvatar and her are in a house on the surface of the city, holding a wailing child. They cannot conceive together. A year prior, she is smiling with her love, tattooed fingers dancing across a swollen belly. He thinks about names. Months later, she is already burying the lifeless, stillborn lump of flesh. She is holding her love's shoulders while his body, weak, pale, and bloodless, is racked with sobs. He screams, begging to know what he did wrong. A year prior, her fingers are still pressed against his stretched skin, and she knows that the answer is that he loved her. Her biology, altered by the beast, is cold and sterile. Life springs forth from her fingers, but it lies dead within her body. So they adapt. The baby they hold coos, and its fingers wrap around hers. Her flesh bubbles and distorts, and the child is born with their curse and her curse. There is no question of who will raise him, as his parents think it an honor for their son to be raised by the Witch King. A decade later, she is guiding the boy's little fingers and knitting an ox bone back together. A dozen siblings watch in fascination.
Wouldn't that be interesting if it turns out that this child of theirs turns out to be the Black Star? That would be an interesting twist.
From around them. Yeva shouts in frustration, throwing her hands up. The fragments of ox bones sail up into the air, twinkling down, forward, and into the fire.
Hang on, I don't know, listen to that again.
Little fingers and knitting an ox bone back together. A dozen siblings watch in fascination from around them. Yeva shouts in frustration, throwing her hands up. The fragments of ox bones sail up into the air, twinkling down, forward, and into the fire. They
So is Yeva the great, you know, however long, like, descendant of this child?
Scatter among the embers, blackening. She watches the cracks form and spread. A month ago, Yeva is staring at Adytum's tent, pained face framed by firelight. Her world has been altered and changed, uprooted from all she has ever known. She wishes she could tell her why she has done this.
Yeah,
and
that'd
wishes
be cool.
She knew why she has done this.
It'd be cool if we could see the tattoos and get just like a better idea of what they are and what they look like, yeah.
Saarn is asking her why she has done this, standing in her quarters. The Holocaust is outside, still milling in the square, trapped in their deathless life. All things end, he insists in furious rage. Life must end to give birth to new life. He is not wrong, and life will end when she permits it to. His service to her will end when she permits it to.
So she seemingly discovered like an even more advanced form of necromancy. And even though all these people are dead, she's keeping them alive. And potentially through her memories, like giving them the personality, right? Like, as she turned all of her clavigars into Holocausts as well. Like, is she literally like trying to preserve this city and her people through the undead means, you know, through her necromancy, but then also giving certain ones that were close to her and special to her, you know, personalities from her memories? Is that what's happening here?
Turns away, and one of her Karsus steps forward to give the snake child his orders. His slitted gaze bores into her back, but she has already passed him, seeing a Mechanite captain die of an asp bite far behind enemy lines. All things have their place. She has seen the bones splitting in the fire, cracks spreading into 10 more cracks, 10 more futures, 10 more futures. Ever forward, countless possibilities multiplying until they crumble into blackened dust. All things end. Centuries before, she is staring up at the stars. They are twinkling and falling in utter chaos. The sky itself is closing up on her. It has not happened yet, but it will. She takes her chances to look at the stars while she still can. She rolls off Xenophon, clutching at its metal frame, pointing out the constellations, the horn, the spear, the pelt, and the hide. She does not want to let it go. She wants to hold it like this in every future, but it does not exist yet, and so she must lie alone. Once, she looked into the maw of a god, and it whispered knowledge that the stars were burning balls of fire the size of this world, lasting for countless turnings. She wonders what kind of truth a fire of that magnitude holds. Unextinguishing, undying. Saarn is wandering through the catacombs to her right, as Xenophon and the woman with the metal arm and the doctors walk to her left. It is following her now, and she is following Saarn in the past. He takes them down side passages and tight corridors packed with so many bones, Xenophon struggles to move. She is not worried, though, as this place is seared into her memory. They arrive before one of the grave vaults, spaces reserved for a single set of honored bones and sealed in stone. This one is empty, unsealed. He shows her, smiling brightly, that this is where his bones will rest. But she does not want him to die. He has been with her from the beginning. Life itself is under her grasp. Why can the future not be too? The seeds are watered. Somewhere else, she sees his serpentine bones shoved into a ditch and buried under countless snakes. He wanted to rest in the city of his birth. He came to her in her study, asking for release to go to the land by the river he had picked. She peered into the fire and told him what she saw. A grand army falling on him, slaying him, an army riding on Adytum. If he goes free, he dies. So the only way to keep him is to control him. He must remain with her, an instrument of her power. She does not tell him which army is falling on him. and which is riding on Adytum. Centuries later, he is staring with horror at the first of her Holocaust as they rise from death. Centuries later, a swarm of the misshapen marching dead are falling on him, cutting him to pieces as the caravan escapes. She is watching atop her horse as he is cut to pieces. She is watching from her swaddling in Luvatar's arms as they escape. He proudly shows her around the grave vault he has chosen. If he is to die here, he says, it will be in a tomb of his choosing. A millennium later, he is bleeding to death in a ditch. She took his farm from him, so she owes him this at least. She hears a hissing, Yeva from behind her, gazing hatefully at Xenophon. Sa'arn on top of her, gazing hatefully at Adytum. They are stopped in an open vault with an empty sarcophagus. Adytum is leaning over it, staring at it as if she expects something to erupt out.
It's a lot to follow, these different images of different times and how they're trying to like put them together, you know, like, yeah. Adytum seeing, you know, what's going to happen. Adytum in the past seeing what's going to happen in the future, manipulating events to get them how they want them to be, only to see Adytum's point of view when she's a baby in the future being smuggled away. You know, I don't know. It's interesting how this is all coming together. It's also sometimes a little hard to kind of follow, but I think I'm understanding.
Or hopes that it does. Xenophon places a hand on her shoulder, and she yanks away and whirls around. It withdraws its hand, but it realizes that she is staring past it, at Yeva. It sees Yeva's eyes widen, and her face contorts with uncertainty and confusion. She does not know what Adytum wants from her, and it doesn't think that she ever did. It then realizes that Adytum is not looking at Yeva, but is staring straight through her. Her lip trembles as she is whispering something under her breath. It leans forward to hear as she says that he was used as a weapon and as a tool, and he did not ask to be made this way. She asks how she even begins to, but her voice trails off. Xenophon thinks for a moment before responding with the word, gently. Her gaze shifts to it, and it is not looking at the Adytum it has come to know. It is looking at a scared, unsure child, but it nods regardless, and her gaze slides away from it. She mouths something it cannot make sense of. Adytum looks out at the spirit of Sa'arn halfway across the chamber as he circles it. Her eyes are wide, pleading, but she is silent. Words have failed her with him before, as he needs more. He needs action. A metal hand from her right offers her a snake bone, and she takes it, crushing it in her fist and sprinkling it over the altar. His gaze meets hers again, and he sees something different this time. Those slitted, serpentine eyes soften as he sees where they are and what she is doing. She whispers that she is sorry, and he nods stiffly, scales shifting. His lip trembles, like he means to say something, but he only nods and departs. He is going to his farm, she hopes, as he has earned it. There is a trembling from deep below the earth. It is then and now, and Luvatar stumbles along with Xenophon and the group. A deep, hungry roaring. She is devouring lump after lump of purple-red flesh, blood pouring down her chin and chest and navel, mixing with her tattoos and her scars. Human mixing with the divine. Her tattoos are obscured underneath it, subsumed in the blood. She is one thing. She needs more and more. She is bouncing Yeva on her lap, holding a crippled bird as she sets its wing. She coos at her and the bird, offering to let her hold it. She is trying to distract her from the children running and playing with their hide ball in the field. She is failing, and her eyes flit towards the boys and girls, thick with envy. Her eyes flit towards Xenophon as they speak in the night, with the same expressions. In an hour and a half, those eyes are seeing the divine, subsumed like tattoos under blood. Adytum is staring at the eyes of a corpse, empty with no life, cold and gray and still, just like hers. She is putting her finger on its bare chest, blood from the old god still dribbling down her chin, wailing of the beast echoing around the chamber as she wrenches apart its rib cage and massages its heart back to beating. The gray eyes twitch and focus. This is a perversion, a facsimile of life. She is sitting in her tent, still at home, before they have uprooted their existence. Yeva is beside her, counseling her that Xenophon cannot be trusted. It is artificial, a mockery of the life and humanity they hold dear. It does not truly live, it does not die, and it does not feel.
We're kind of going around in circles here a little bit, I feel too, right? Like, we're seeing things and getting, like, we're kind of recounting things that have already happened in the story, but I guess getting a little bit more perspective on it. A little more perspective from now that we have the full memories of it, but also kind of jumping around and seeing how a lot of these things kind of tie together through history at different points. So I mean, it's interesting.
Adytum nods, her mind somewhere else.
I'm just curious to see where this is going to go, because it all seems like it's leading toward them actually getting down there to what's left of Yaldabaoth, and then that's probably where the original memories would cut off, I would assume. Well, I guess technically everything we're learning right now is where the original memories cut off, right? And then we're learning now the recovered stuff, but I'm assuming it's leading all towards them getting to Yaldabaoth and then something happening there. I wonder if it's a situation where Adytum is going to allow Yaldabaoth to consume her and give the flesh that it took back or something, or is she going to consume it more fully and take it all, for herself again? Or, I don't know. I'm curious to see where this is going to go.
One of the priestesses is casting desperate curses on her as she advances on her, scrabbling backward into the corner of the catacombs. Many ran down here to escape the massacre. They do not understand how deeply she knows this place. Roots fail to burst out of her skin. Her eyes fail to grow red with disease. She cries out that Adytum is not truly alive before Adytum reaches out and her bones crumble to nothingness within her body. Her corpse sags.
I mean, that would be a twist, right? If Adytum was dead the whole time. And this is some kind of undead version. But it kind of also explain why she's been able to live for so long.
Qatar sags in her arms, blood bubbling out of the wound they both look down on in disbelief. For a moment, the haze in her mind that has torn her apart for centuries clears, and all she feels is animal agony and regret. But then he is gone, already thrown into the future, and she is curling into his body while they devour each other under the stars. She does not want this to end. She looks up at the stars. They last forever. Her hand grips Xenophon's metal one while the grave fires warm them. The stars have shifted, blinked away. She reaches up to point out the constellations to it, and find they are no longer there. They have crumbled away, leaving only dark ashes. 10 minutes ago, The doctor is whispering something to his.
So is that supposed to be like a representation that they've lived so long that there's a future where they're still alive as the stars in the sky are dying out, you know? Is that what that's supposed to mean? Or is that supposed to be like the black moons come for them kind of a situation, you know?
His soldiers behind them. Xenophon seems worried as it follows her, informing her that they are very deep. It asks if it would be wise to go up, but she shakes her head. They cannot. In an hour, they are already at the bottom. The catacombs are growing less maintained now, bones scattering among the floor. The people began to fear descending, leaving her free to wander these ossuaries alone. She knows the name of every fallen soldier interred here. She whispers them to herself as she passes. She notices Xenophon repeating the words as it inspects the cubbyholes. Uruk walks with her, her huge size barely fitting in these tunnels, her head bowed. She will have to set out again soon, as the Mechanites and Deva push on their borders. Ayun whispers the names to her as they pass, and she repeats them. She has always struggled with memory.
So again, like, is this a situation where literally the whole city's been dead this whole time? And she's essentially keeping the city alive in her memories? Like, have all these things just been undead?
But she lay.
And like, it wasn't until, I don't know, wasn't until she actually went to kill them herself that they actually really died or something? I don't know. This is, like I said, this is a little strange.
Lays her trust in Ayun to get the names right. She lays all her trust in her. 4 millennia ago, she is letting Uruk lift her up in gigantic palms, offering her arms. Her wide eyes are unsure, concerned, but Ayun assures her, and her teeth bite down, taking her entire left arm off. The stump hangs there, bone jutting out where it snapped. The muscles spasm and blood pours. Then the bone extends, the blood congeals into new muscle, the sinew springs forth and the skin grows, bringing her tattoos with it. In 5 seconds, she is fine again. Uruk is looking down at her, eyes the size of Ayun's head. For once, they are not beaded with tears. It's gone, she whispers, and it doesn't hurt anymore. They exit into another massive chamber, and she hears the soldiers and researchers gasp. It is another cavern, but now channels of glowing red run through the floor, light glancing off 1,000 bodies. Endless rows of hulking, misshapen bodies, many arms and hunched backs, dressed in hide armor and spears in hand. Uruk is presenting them to her, explaining that they're her personal guard. They will die before letting harm befall her. Centuries ago, she is back in that quarry. The rock wall has given way to reveal purple-red flesh, flowing with blood like a holy spring. Uruk is bowing her head for her, assuring her that she will die before letting anyone harm her. Then she is standing on a cliffside, pointing out a village. It has some stragglers from the old masters. Deva, certainly, but no priestesses. No more a threat to them than a lame deer. But they need room, and she needs sacrifices. Uruk nods. 4 days in the future, the village is burning. A century in her past, Uruk is holding her to her lips and gnawing off her arm. They are walking through the assembled soldiers, the researchers inspecting the armor on the statues of ash and plaster, perfectly immortalized. Not one looks quite the same as the others. Uruk is repeating the names of the dead soldiers interred in these halls. Ayun worries about what she will do when she is gone, what her people will do without a strong leader to guide them. The uncertainty gnaws at her. A millennium later, her horse is atop a bluff, watching as wave after wave of her Holocaust, each different, are cut down by a massive armored figure and her few loyalists. Urok's blades come down like hammers, slaying half a dozen of Ioun's death beasts in one swoop. She does not care. They will rise again in time. Urok's gaze lands on her, and for a split second, her sword lowers and she sees it all in her eyes. Pain, confusion, endless questions. Just long enough for them to swarm her and bring her down, hungry, lifeless maws eating her alive. The group is walking through the columns of petrified soldiers, and Xenophon thinks it is strange. It has seen the Holocaust in her memories, but only ever from a distance. Now they are close enough to touch them, captured in perfect living detail, but unmoving. No two are quite the same, and the other researchers realize that. They see the varying defects and misshapen limbs and injuries, but they do not see the different knittings on the leather armor, or the different charms around their necks, or the different expressions on these faces. Not just mindless anger, but joy, worry, and fear. Xenophon remarks to Ioun that these were her personal guard, and she says that they were trained by Urok to defend her until the very end. She worried for her, who would protect her in Urok's absence. Urok was supposed to protect her, and she was supposed to protect Urok. They pass on different sides of a hulking soldier carrying a spear 4 times his height. They are following the path carved into the ground, a series of channels filled with a glowing red fluid. Xenophon asks what it is, and Ioun appears to say something to Urok. Another tremor rises through the city, shaking everything, and this one is less gentle than the previous ones. Xenophon tells Ioun that she is here with it, and she says that of course she is, and she is here with Urok. She is still at the study with Nadak, and she is in the vault with Sa'arn, and she is stepping into Luvatar's home and seeing he is asleep. It is all at once for her. Xenophon is not sure what to say, but Ioun answers that the fluid...
What can you really say about that? Like, I'm experiencing all these moments in time all at once at the same time, while also seeing the future and still being here in the present. Like, are you supposed to really respond and or say anything to that? Like, again, that is also something that, how could you even describe what that's like without having the kind of context for that?
Fluid is blood, and it is not sitting stagnant. It is flowing. Looking closer, it sees that she is right. It is flowing through the channels continuously. It hears a crack and sees her draw a large piece of rib from her robes, the same it helped her burn. Its memory goes to that night, and it remembers itself pinned to the ground, her straddling its chassis before leaning down to press her forehead to its. It labels this as a priority memory and encrypts it. It likes the way that it makes it feel, and it doesn't want to lose it. Ioun says that it is not a full bone, and Xenophon tells her that she would understand. Ioun nods and crushes it, sprinkling the dust into the blood. The white ashes flow forward, around and around, dispersing between all the branches and between the stone soldiers. She is whispering to herself as they watch it. She says that one stream splits into 10 more, 10 more. No one can see how it ends. Xenophon cocks its head in confusion and remarks that it doesn't end. Ioun realizes that Xenophon is right. It just comes back around on itself. She looks down and sees the proof.
Again, this is kind of like getting into cycles of things, you know, like it turning back around on itself. I don't know. Again, this is very interesting, but also very strange and kind of somewhat hard. Again, it's kind of confusing to follow. We're reliving through the events we've already kind of gone over in the past with a little bit more context, but at the same time, we're still not getting a clear picture of exactly what's necessarily happening, and we're jumping around like seemingly sometimes through different timelines of different events that could have happened, that could have been possibilities, maybe happened, didn't happen, and also potentially through variations of Ioons, you know, for sure, at least the past Ioun, and then also seemingly present Ioun. Then we're also, I guess, seeing that potentially Yeva might be the reincarnation or at least descendant of one of the Clavigars, the Serpent Clavigar. I can't remember. Not Xenophon. Xenophon's the AI. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they've said it a few times, you know. So like, is it also a situation where like a lot of these beings around her are reincarnated versions of these people, right? Like she seems to kind of have somehow a fixation with Luvatar and Xenophon, and now Yeva and that Serpent Clavigar. Are there other people that are potentially going to be like some of her other Clavigars? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm following it, but at the same time, again, it's like kind of posing more questions than we're getting answers for when there's like an hour and a half left in this before we're supposed to be done. I want answers, damn it.
The channels form a loop. Is there a beginning, or does it just go around on itself, and all we ever see are endings? She is carving Luvatar's and her name into the walls of the staircase. He is smiling and asking her how their story ends.
And also, like, I wonder if part of this is also she's always been able to see into the future, and so that also means she's always able to see the death and destruction of everything she's cared about. Her city, her people, the people that are closest to her. Then she gets the ability to essentially keep everything alive. You know, so then it's like, is she essentially trying to defy these futures? Is she just trying to essentially preserve her city, her people, and everything she loves in the only way she knows how to, which is essentially through undeath and this perversion of life kind of thing, you know? So I don't know.
She tells him that it will never end, forever and ever, like the stars burning in the sky.
Right.
She is standing...
Because again, she got this voice, you know, she got this information told to her from Yaldabaoth, or, you know, could have been maybe another god, but you have to assume that the words are from Yaldabaoth, you know, that the stars are this unending, you know, balls of fire in the sky that can never die kind of a thing. And she's like fixated on these stars. So is she like seemingly trying to create this civilization and society and city that is just unending, undying, will last forever until the stars burn out and after? Like, is that where this is going? Is that like what the vision is that Ioun had? But then that also kind of contradicts the whole, you know, tenet or commandment or whatever of like, you know, to be flesh is to die. You know, that's also supposed to be like one of their holy doctrines or beliefs or whatever. I don't know.
At the balcony of her tower, the entire city is rumbling, shaking, spasming as the earth itself rises. The sky closes on itself, and she sees the sun blink out, eclipsed by a black moon. Adytum is bathed in blackness. The last of the bone dust sprinkles into the bloodstream and circulates through the chamber. She hears a thumping and looks up. Uruk at the far end of this cavity, huge figure dressed in the same armor as her now stone soldiers. She nods at Ayun and smiles, and then she too is gone. The researchers fan out,
All getting Thanos
inspecting
snap.
these ash stone soldiers. Centuries ago, she is raising them from the dead, watching corpses stumble to their feet and gaze lifelessly at her. She cannot bring herself to order them to go after her Karsus. Something inside her, something she thought long suppressed, stops her. She does not understand what, and it enrages her. She screams, but there is no one left alive in Adytum to hear it. Only her and the dead, and she is as alone as she has ever been. In a shadowed corner of the cavern, metal fingers graze hers, and
Is it just that, or is it that she's like trying to reconcile like her memories in present time? Is this also a situation where like after consuming so much of Yaldabaoth, she had these abilities all along, and now that she's got her full power from her Clavigar, she's regained it again, kind of a situation? You know, I don't know.
she realizes that Xenophon is beside her. It is beside her when she is playing games with the children, inquisitive little eyes fascinated by its construction. Her eyes tracing the contours of these metal plates. One sits in its lap, and it is too surprised to remove him. She laughs deeply. 4 millennia ago, one of their children is tugging the hem of Luvatar's robe, and he laughs and raises them into the air. They have raised so many children into Karsus. They are to be the next generation of leaders, interpreters, guides. She knows she should.
And so again, right, like, are these undead children being born? Right? Like, if there's like, and again, this is like, where in the timeline are we talking about this here? Is this after everyone's already been killed and dead and there's nothing but the Holocaust? And so like, is she having the Holocaust like birth things now? And are we having that? Or is this like, she couldn't kill her Clavigars, so now is she like just reproducing with them? And these are like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of hard to really understand somewhat of what's going on here because we're jumping around so much.
Trust them, as they raised them. But try as she might, she cannot place her faith in them. She has seen them as children. She has seen their mistakes, flaws, failings. She knows which ones are impulsive, meek, too smart for their own good, and not smart enough. She cannot separate this from her view of them.
It's also interesting being able to see someone's like, look at someone, see their entire lifetime in being and know everything they do, their mistakes, their flaws, etc., and like instantly essentially judging them for all of that before they've even made them, you know? So then like, does she start seeing people that way and then like seeing them as more of like imperfections that she needs to correct, kind of a thing?
Yeva pouts at her while she admonishes her. The result of her latest experiment lies between them, a sparrow she molded with a third clawed wing. It fell from the air and snapped its neck. She insists that she just wanted to see what would happen, and Ayun raises her voice at her. It is dead now, and death is not reversible. These are the powers they play with. She shrinks under her rage, but Ayun can see she does not understand. If death is so powerful, how has her teacher cheated it for so long? 20 years later, she is sitting before the steel while Yeva leads her first prayer, singing coming from deep in her lungs. She looks to Ayun for approval, and all she can see is the bird between them, twitching in the embrace of death. Yeva is looking around now, shocked at the state of the Ash Holocaust. These are not the noble, proud soldiers she has read Adytum preaching about. These are casts of gaps, icons of lifeless monstrosities dragged back from holy death. These are the consequences of her actions. She looks to Adytum, eyes wide and confused. She is as inscrutable to her as she has ever been. The Foundation doctor orders them to continue. The gaunt ash-gray faces of 1,000 of her men disturb him, and he feels outnumbered. 2 nights ago, something takes root inside his head. The woman with the metal arm nods at Xenophon. 2 days ago, she is given the order to protect them. They are all automatons, slaves acting on the whims of masters they cannot see. She cringes away from the lash of the whip as it strikes the slave next to her. A harsh order from the slave master. In 3 years, she is pressing her fingers to his terrified face and kissing his forehead while his blood boils inside his body. He never realizes who she is. They are diving deeper into the tunnels now, far past where the rest of the Nalka dared to tread, into the labyrinthine intestines of this city thing. The tunnels here are narrow, unfinished, the bones load-bearing, forming great pillars that keep the ceiling from caving in.
And I've thought about this before, and I think you even talked about it in one of the previous videos, right? Is Black Adytum itself made from Yaldabaoth? That they literally like sculpt and take apart Yaldabaoth and form its flesh and bone and everything into the city itself and make like a living city? And this blood that they keep seeing that's flowing around, is this just Yaldabaoth's blood continuously flowing? You know? Another Grindhouse writing style will have resolution in the end, but more answers to be sure. Yeah, hopefully. Right.
They crunch under their footsteps, and the stench of death is omnipresent. Her feet move by themselves, as she has walked this path so many times alone. She is leaning on the balcony of her tower alongside Luvatar. They are making plans, as once their people have settled in, they will leave. She has become something greater, the beast blood within her veins running white and wild.
Very Bloodborne. Definitely a very Bloodborne feel to it here.
There are other injustices elsewhere. More slaves to free, more masters to slay, more truth to spread. Luvatar's hands dance along her spine. They will have a home by the sea, she says, as he has never seen the great water before. It has been 2 centuries since she left the confines of this city. Far from a prison, it now encompasses her. She feels it like it is a part of her body. Her fingers stretch through alleyways and her viscera forms catacombs. She sees everything. The food is distributed, the water is brought in, the dead are burned, and the sick are healed. All functions as it should, as long as all listen to her. They just need to listen to her. 1,000 years before, she is kneeling before the beast. This is a delicate dance of control, as this thing is a god. Its kind has kept men in bondage since time immemorial. One slip, and it would devour her alive. She knew it would, because there is a hunger in her to do the same. She saws off a sliver of flesh, and its wailing is startlingly human, but she cannot stop.
Jesus.
This is what it takes to build the paradise they desire. Would her dear Clavigars still accept her if they knew what she was doing?
I mean, that's interesting, right? Like, the idea of the original idea from Yaldabaoth is that she created all life, right? and it was just like very primal and instinctual and survival of the fittest. And then Meccan came along and raised humanity up by giving us intelligence and technology, etc. That's kind of like the original overall idea. So, I mean, what if it is true that Yaldabaoth is essentially like a god form of what humanity is or could be, and is like the progenitor still? And so that would tie in with the whole cannibalism side of the Sarkics and their ritual, and that's how that, like, essentially consuming them spreads their, keeps their memories and everything together, because they're essentially still just consuming Yaldabaoth, essentially, right? I don't know. That's interesting.
What this city was built on. They must not know, she whispers. Centuries later, she is still kneeling before the beast. There are no illusions about who has the control anymore. The knife is in her grip.
Right.
The blood drenches her hands. The wailing falls on her deaf ears as she saws away bits of the flesh wall, rich and divine as the day she uncovered it in the quarry. She only needs a bit more, a few things left that she cannot exert her will over.
Which I guess could also lean into a bit more of, like, when we heard Yaldabaoth saying that it was a slave too and was imprisoned and abused, and that it would help them. That could have also been very genuine, because if it still holds that, humanity was created by Yaldabaoth could see them as her children still, and they've all experienced the same torture and punishment and whatnot, and would have been willing to help them, Who knows? But it could have also, again, been that adage of, the scorpion. I think it's the scorpion and the frog in this, but I've heard it explained as other things, but where it's just in the nature of the scorpion to sting and it can't help itself, and Yaldabaoth might have eventually turned and killed or consumed humanity again, who knows? Because again, the whole thing with Yaldabaoth is very much kind of primal survival of the fittest stuff.
Her control is absolute over life, their people, this city, but holy death escapes her grasp. Her body is sustained as long as she eats, but what happens when the flesh runs out? She only needs enough to allow the ritual, and then all will be well. She is hungry. So hungry. The ritual is done, and she is waking up, swaddled in Nadok's robes. She is waking up before the beast, alone, utterly alone. Something has been ripped out of her.
So yeah, this is where they went through where she went through, I guess, the ritual, and her humanity was split from her and into what is present Ioun, I think. And so now there's two Iouns.
There is a sickening, violent abscess in her chest. Her skin burns on her body. What has she done? And where has the seed gone? She is stumbling to her feet, crawling up the stairs. 10 minutes in her future, she is watching with disbelieving eyes as her clavigars, her Nalka, leave her in a vast drove, torches riding away in the night over the city walls. Sarkic, those who walk away. She screams, but it means nothing, and no one hears it. Months ago, she is stabbing her knife into the beast, demanding it spill its secrets of divinity. The beast blood in her veins is powerful, but not powerful enough. She needs control, and the ability to shape the world to her will. She needs the power to make them listen to her. She needs to be a god. The thought.
It's interesting to me, though, too. It's like, I wonder... It seems like there's almost kind of like a power scale of gods, too, in this situation. Because, right, like, you've got the Scarlet, and you've got, you know, Yaldabaoth, and you've got Meccan, and then you've got whatever the Black Moon is, which they seem to represent it as a god of sorts in this, right? And so it's almost like Scarlet, Yaldabaoth, and Meccan were almost kind of equals, and then it seems like the Black Moon is more powerful than them. And it seems like, you know, then obviously the avatar of the Black Moon, the Black Star, the Abominant, whatever, is also vastly more powerful with his abilities, you know, and he's what, like a theoretical reality bender on a theoretical level that they, you know, think isn't necessarily possible, kind of a thing. But obviously in the story with the Davites, we saw him literally sink a subcontinent into the Indian Ocean to destroy the Davite homeworld. So, I mean, is it even a situation where she could, because she's seen the future and she's seen what's going to happen with the Black Star and everything, is it even a situation where she could become powerful enough to combat any of this anyway, you know? And like, again, with her ability to see the future, would she be able to see a future where she could defeat him? And is that what she's trying to create here, manipulate? You know, I don't know. Or is it a situation where she's like just trying to like get things to survive in some kind of manner? It almost seems like there's two situations going on here, right? It's like the Clavigars and her original people end up leaving her and moving on, right? They spread out and become the Sarkics. But it also feels like then she creates all of them again from bone and ash and almost kind of like implants her memories into them to create their personalities in some form afterwards. And so she's almost trying to preserve her city and her people in their way in like this, again, kind of undead, undying, you know, way. And is that how she sees it, as a way to essentially defeat the Black Star, because they literally can't die? Every time they were to do anything or level the city, she can literally just reform it and reshape it at her will. So no matter what the Black Star does, it doesn't matter, essentially. Because again, what they're saying is like the Black Star's weapon is sieging the city, essentially surrounding it, keeping anyone from being able to leave and enter, starving them out. But if nothing can die, and anything you destroy simply gets remade and virtually instantly, then it's like, does then the fight just become like a battle of wills kind of situation, where it's like, how long do you want to keep going at this? We're going to be at a forever stalemate until you leave, kind of a thing. Like, is that like her solution? You know, I don't know. Well, I don't think the Ash statues were alive, although they were just a way for her to help the pain of her people leaving her. Ways to outlast. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm like, yeah, there's again questions that I have that hopefully will be answered. We'll see.
Strangely does not disturb her anymore. It wails the truth that she must die to be reborn, that she must excise her humanity to overcome it. Months later, she is sucking in breaths as she drags herself through these bone-laden tunnels. She looks down at herself, streaking a trail of red as she claws forward. Xenophon's foot falls where her head was, will be. The bone crunches underneath. She is going to die. The thought echoes in her brain as she crawls. Luvatar says to her in confusion that she is going to die. She is talking about the future, what Adytum and the Nalka will do millennia from now. He does not understand. She has no intention of leaving this city's fate up to any god except for herself. In 5 years, he is already sneaking into the chamber of the beast, snatching the babe she has cut out of her chest. Centuries ago, she is grabbing his arm, as the slave masters roughly grab his collar and haul him off into the tent of one of the witch priestesses. She is watching him get dragged off, and she is powerless to stop them. The weakness burns hot. In the night, in this quarry, she swears an oath to the only god she recognizes, herself. She will never leave her fate up to any master again. Her love stares at her strangely. Decades ago, she is kissing him, and he is wrapping himself into her embrace. She never wants to let him go. Now he is embracing her, hands wrapping around her bloodied robes. His torch lies abandoned on the stone ground, casting flickering light into the chamber of the beast, door lying open behind her. He came to fetch her for something. He is holding her as if trying to drag her back from something, and they do not speak. They have never needed to speak, really. They speak over a lunch. She does not need food anymore, but he asked to speak. Anyone else interrupting her unholy work would have earned her wrath, but she cannot deny her love, so they speak. They speak as they watch the sun rise and Adytum comes to life. He tells her he loves her, and always will. It is last night, and she is on top of Xenophon, grinding flesh against metal, and it is saying words she has heard before. She is holding Luvatar as he sobs. Tomorrow she is burying the lump of dead flesh, but now she is staring at it in quiet confusion. Life should be under her absolute control, so how is it that the things most important to her escape her domain? Millennia before, she is watching the cracks in the bones grow and grow and grow.
Well, and that's also interesting too, is like, she's getting like, if you were literally able to control the will of everyone and everything around you, what point would there even kind of be? This kind of ties in with Elden Ring too in the DLC, you know, like Miquella was wanting to create this age of compassion by essentially enslaving everyone's mind and will. But then it's like, all right, what kind of world would you live in with no free will to begin with? You know, if everyone just loves you because you tell them to, what's the point? And then like, you know, what does anything else really matter? You know, and so it's kind of like the same thing here with that. Like, she's seemingly wanting to like gain control over everyone and everything that she cares about and preserve them, is what it sounds like. But again, it's like, it's almost like, you know, how do I want to word this? Through her, I guess, being split off into two beings, one of which is the one, you know, present Ioun is the one with her humanity, and past Ioun is the one where she cast her humanity off, right? Present Ioun, I think, is potentially, you know, through her experiences, realizing that for life to have meaning, unfortunately, it does have to end. For the connections and things that you make with people and the ones that you love, in order to like really, you know, appreciate them, you have to have an understanding that someday they may actually end, you know? And so I wonder if that's kind of where this is going to. She's going to kind of like maybe reconcile both halves. Like, I wonder if that's really what's going on here, you know, with all these memories and visions, are like the two parts of her kind of fighting and trying to reconcile each other's existence. And then is there going to be like a new Ioun born from this that is like the yin and the yang, you know, the good and the evil in balance and harmony together, kind of a thing?
Forward. They all end in the same way, crumbling into blackness. She stares at the stillbirth and frowns. A decade ago, Yeva pleads with her to do the last rites for the latest dead. Ayun forbids it, as she is not ready. She demands to know when she will be ready, but Ayun does not answer. In 10 minutes, Ayun is sobbing in agony, doubled over and kneeling. Luvatar and her are looking over the nameless city, its future utterly unwritten. Luvatar and her are looking down at Adytum, the paradise they are building with blood that is not her own. She is looking down at Black Adytum, scorched by her sins, utterly alone. In her past, she is
So it's also interesting there that I want to listen to that again real quick.
Over and kneeling. Luvatar and her are looking over the nameless city, its future utterly unwritten. Luvatar and her are looking down at Adytum, the paradise they are building with blood that is not her own.
Notice how when her or Luvatar are talking about it and them looking over it, they say Adytum. But then later, after all of the events have happened, it's called Black Adytum. After, you know, she'd committed her sins, essentially.
She is looking down at Black Adytum, scorched by her sins, utterly alone. In her past, she is preaching to her Nalka that this place will be different, that they will build something new, something without gods or kings. In her future, she is preaching to a dead city that she is their god and their king. Well,
so the city of Adytum was when the Nalka were there as an actual people, you know, and then Black Adytum is what happened after she cast off her humanity and there was nothing but a city of undead. There's two different cities, almost two different time periods.
Siege engines batter the walls. She is whispering that her control is absolute, even as the city begins to sink and the sky closes over her head. A century later, deep in the dark underground, there is no one left to lie to, not even herself. A metal hand lands on her shoulder, and she...
So, are we gonna find past Ayun down here? Is that what this is? If that's the case, how are we seeing their memories, though? You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, because if Ayun got buried with her city down under here and is essentially immortal, does that mean that we will find Ayun down here? Almost two separate cultures, right? Yeah. Right.
Stops. 2 minutes ago, she stops before a small, unassuming doorway. Right now, she realizes she has stopped, and the soldier's eyes are boring into her. She looks to Xenophon, and in its metal gaze, she sees trust. She steps forward. Xenophon notes to itself that there is nothing in this place, just a corner of the catacombs like any other. There are no significant carvings, artifacts, or points of archaeological interest, not even any remains. But somehow, it understands that this place is unspeakably important to her. It turns and sees her, standing in the doorway and staring inside, her lip trembling. 4,000 years ago, she is stepping into this doorway. It is bare and empty, no doubt meant to hold the graves of a powerful family. A hand wraps around her own, and Luvatar looks at her. This will be their home, he announces. Decades later, she is stepping into this warm space, lit by fire. Blankets are draped around all the surfaces, and the children race between her legs, eager for their father. There is meat hanging above the fire, flesh roasting. Luvatar is leaning.
So, I mean, it seems like they at some point in time had a family and then something happened. Is it a situation where her family, like, again, this is kind of almost getting like Elden Ring-ish similarities here. Were her children taken from her, and then that sent her down a path of like, I'm never going to lose people I care about again, which potentially is one of the things that happened with Marika, with, Godric being killed. Is it Godric? I always get the names confused because her first son of the golden lineage. Anyway, so yeah, is that where we're gonna go with this? Is that part of the situation where like they had Adytum, it was a city, they were at peace, whatever, and then something happens, she loses her children, the people that she is closest to, and then she vows to never let that happen again, wanting more and more control, consumes more flesh, it corrupts her further, wanting more and more power and more control over life and death. Does she, start Nadak down this path of solving, this mystery? Because that's also kind of something they're talking about and have been foreshadowing, that even the Davites, their masters, weren't able to have mastery over life and death, but that, Nadak solved this great equation in this secret. And so is that part of this, that there's some kind of secret in this divine flesh or something that she's consuming that gives her control over life and death? And so she becomes so like singular, driven in trying to keep everything that she loves and cares about alive, that she ends up destroying it, kind of a situation. Is that where this is going? I don't know. Interesting.
Leaning against the wall, asleep, a smile playing on his lips. There is war on the surface. There is a fell god below. But here, this is pure and innocent. She is finally home, but there is nothing here. The blankets have withered away to nothing. The fire is dark ashes and soot. There are no strings of herbs hanging from the ceiling, and no laughter echoing about the stone walls. No one is waiting for her with a smile. This place is cold and dead. She crumples to the floor, body racked by sobs. This is not how it was supposed to go, not how it was meant to end. She did not mean for this to happen. She did not mean for any of this to happen. She looks backwards, towards that scene, stepping into her warm home. She reaches out for it, but it turns to dust and slips through her fingers. She is not there. She only thinks she is. That life is lost, cracking into 1,000 pieces and crumbling into scorched bone. She is sobbing and cursing the only god she knows, herself.
Herself, yeah.
Nadak is holding her, drawing the equations on the chalkboard, telling her that she cannot go backward, only forward. Sa'arn is pleading with her in her throne room, telling her that all things end. Uruk is staring at her from across the battlefield, wide eyes demanding an answer as to why. She has been a slave, bloodied and bruised, working to the bone in the quarries of the old masters, utterly helpless to the whims of other men. She has been a king, lauded and honored, leading her people into a new tomorrow, beholden to no one but the gods. She has been a healer, praised and blessed, reaching into the maw of a fell god and stealing the secrets of life. Nothing beyond her powers save for death. She has been a deathbringer, reviled and cursed, raising her holocaust from the dead and unleashing them against her enemies. No one left to tell her no. She has been a heretic, tortured and martyred, subverting the teachings of gods and men. Throat cut and hanged from a tree, no soul to aid her except her dearest clavigars. She has been a god, worshipped and obeyed, her gaze stretching out across all existence. everything under her control except those most dear to her. Forward, forward, until it all ends, crumbling into black dust. She is standing on the hill, staring up at the stars as they twinkle and smear and change in night sky, pinpricks of light blinking out one by one. Nadak explains to her that even the fire of stars dies eventually. Hurtling forward in time, she barely hears him. Yeva stalks out in frustration as she watches the oxbone fragments burn.
So I wonder if this is also a situation where, like, again, because of their cannibalistic rituals, she's able to she's consumed some of their flesh, so she's literally has them and their memories with her. And so is that part of the situation where she's like literally preserving them in herself? And so she's seeing a future where she's been alive so long again that she's seeing the various stars in the sky go out one by one. And so she's just like, through her memories, envisioning Doc being there talking with her, or potentially because she has so much control over these abilities, she's able to actually kind of like project him in some kind of way out there, like separate it's like the various beings' personalities from her so they can actually like talk and have conversations, whether it's in her mind or not, you know, I don't know. Interesting.
In the flames. Ayun is watching all her futures collapse, the cracks retreating, drawing back to one point, back to the here and now. There is no past, there is no future, there is only now, her kneeling on the floor, sobbing alone. Luvatar is here, leaning against the wall, smile playing on his lips. Her eyes widen as he says that she cannot control everything. He gets to his feet, stretching, no older than when they met. Life cannot be corralled in and trained. Life just happens. But it'll end, she says. He steps forward, reaches a hand out, and kisses both her cheeks. He says that he knows, with a smile, and then he too is gone. Everything is silent. Soldiers are staring at her. She realizes with a start where she is. Here and now, next to Xenophon. She looks backward. The past is inscribed bones, memories that have already happened and will never happen again. She looks forward. The future is clean bone. She is in the now. Xenophon is holding her, in defiance of what the doctor and the soldiers and everyone else will think. There is no place and no time else she would rather be. She wipes the tears off her face and smiles. She is ready to go now. They wander off, out of this dead place. This was her home once. She smiles fondly at the memory instead of falling into it, but that is the past. Now, it holds nothing for her. She can hear the doctor whispering to the soldiers and the clicking of guns. They do not trust either of them. Another thing that unites them. She can feel it, still, moving below this tomb city in the deep vault. But it does not scare her anymore. It has no power over her, and she will face her fate. They wander deeper, deeper, ever deeper, on the same path her feet have traced 10,000 times through winding ossuaries and charnel houses, bones crushed to dust underneath her feet. The trembling is closer and closer. She is sagging, leaning against Xenophon for support. After 4,000 years, she is exhausted, but there is still work to be done.
I'll be a little tired after that much time,
Xenophon says her name, and she looks up to see two great stone doors lying before them. The same stone doors she has seen in her memory time and time again. She says that this is it, the heart of the city, the cornerstone all her empire is built on. Her sin, her betrayal, her apostasy. She can feel it beyond the door, waiting for her. She stumbles up eroded steps and presses a bloodied hand against the door. She looks to Xenophon and sees a glimmer she has never seen in its blue eye before. It nods, and she pushes, the door shifting easily, and they are in the heart. They are in a ritual chamber, tall, high, and roughly cylindrical, though it's impossible to tell from how thick the walls have been overgrown with flesh. It is thick, red-purple, uneven, rough, and skinless. Xenophon has seen this place before, in the memories of the one it cares for, but it is different now. The flesh is sickly, run through with black tendrils and sores oozing ugly pus. The 1,000 eyes scattered across the flesh are fluttering and swollen with blood. It runs down to the floor, where channels have been painstakingly carved into the stone, spiraling around in a complex, infinite dance before they flow to a single basin. The only light comes from a single dying campfire, embers burning low. Xenophon tilted.
The fire from the first flame. Is Dark Souls part of this universe? Is Dark Souls canon in the SCP universe now?
Its eye up and shines its floodlights on the thing in the wall. Something within Xenophon turns. It is a massive, gaping maw, 4 meters tall and lined with rough bone teeth. Darkness looms inside it as it widens and tightens, gasping desperate hot breaths. Saliva and blood pour from the mouth. Even without life, Xenophon can tell this thing is on the outermost edges of it. It twitches slightly, and Xenophon senses something shift within the darkness of its gullet. The lips move again, and Xenophon prepares for the voice it has heard the beast speak with. It does not come, and instead there is a voice double-layered over itself. Partly the beast, deep and thrumming and impossibly old and tortured, but overtop it, subsuming it, the cruel, cutting voice it has heard from the mouth of a scarred prophet, the Adytum of old. Yaldabaoth speaks, welcoming the seed home. If Xenophon had blood, it would have gone cold, and it sees the others shiver in place, although Adytum does not move.
So does that mean that it is true that Yaldabaoth ended up corrupting the Adytum of old and essentially took it over? Because it's welcoming the seed back. So would Adytum of the present, if it were to merge with whatever, would Yaldabaoth become complete again? Kind of a situation. Interesting.
The voice is deeply wrong on every level, incompatible with life. It says that she was always to return. It knew it, here, in this heart of hearts, womb of wombs. It burned the bones and read the futures, and all the cracks led here. It has waited, and has been hungry, so hungry. It gurgles, and blood bubbles in the corner of its mouth. It takes Xenophon a moment to realize that it is laughing. It says that finally its rogue organ arrives. Xenophon looks to Adytum in confusion, and her face is as impassive as its is. Xenophon thought that this thing was exploited and taken advantage of. Then it hears the strangled, booming cries underneath that voice, and once again, something dark and implacable shifts inside Yaldabaoth's maw, drawing itself out. The Adytum of old is crawling, clinging to life by sharpened teeth, dragging himself forward with bloodied stumps of fingers. He will not die here. He will lay his eyes on the great water. He screams as a bone catches in his open wound, shredding his flesh further. There is no one left to hear it. Far above, he can hear the engines of war. This city is a part of him, and he can feel his walls breaking, toppling under the pressure. He feels the vast, dead Holocaust swarming on the streets as this great tomb begins to sink down, soil and peat and mud and earth falling in great heaps onto them. He can feel the terrifying, unfamiliar sensation of something far older and more terrible than himself hanging over him. He thought himself a god, life and death bent to his whim. But even here, he can feel the warping of the black moon hanging over this city. This is a true god. The shaded godling raises his hand up before his army, and through hundreds of lengths of dirt and stone, Ioun's eyes meet his. There is only world weariness in those eyes. And still his city continues to sink, the sun blotted out by this dark occlusion, the tendrils of light wrapping around the god he has come to hate. In the cracking of the bones, Ioun can see the black stars tomorrow. The seeds of apostasy are in his heart. His mind and soul has been forged on the battlefield. He is a god-slayer, a death-bringer, and he has seen the carnage his patron demands of him. He will not stop now. He will kill Ioun, and then he will march on his master to kill it too. Neither of them knows this, of course. They are cursed to live only in the present, in the now. And now, he will kill him.
That's interesting. That's interesting. It kind of would make sense in a way, though, right? Like, if the Black Moon wants to remove anomalies, essentially, and it creates a god killer to destroy gods and their influence, well, the Black Moon is a god, and its influence will need to be destroyed and removed as well. That's interesting.
Ioun drags himself up these stone steps and across the channels cut into the floor. His fresh blood mixes with the stale ichor as the dying voices of a god greet him with trepidation. They are both dying, he gasps. This city will be Ioun's tomb as well as its, if they do nothing. He reaches up, tattooed hands gripping the teeth, using the last of his strength to force them apart. He draws his knife from inside his belt loop. The beast begs, asking what else he will take from it, and he answers, everything. Xenophon realizes that this is not a tomb for the beast, but for Ioun.
Yep.
Ioun nods, still staring at Yaldabaoth. They watch as it widens, and the thing inside emerges into the cold white light. It is a tongue, huge and prehensile, purplish and swollen as it extrudes forth out of the maw. There, embedded into the purple flesh of the tongue muscle, is a man, his legs trapped inside, while his upper...
We're getting into some crazy Bloodborne, Eldritch, God, Lovecraftian stuff here now. So, Ioun gains control over the power of life and death. Yaldabaoth and him are going to die at the hands of the Black Moon, so the only thing it can do is essentially embed itself in Yaldabaoth and become one with it and take over Yaldabaoth as a being to preserve them. So now Yaldabaoth is some kind of undead god with Ioun at its core. Again, this is like some Final Fantasy crazy Bloodborne boss shit here.
Half reaches forward. Familiar tattoos spread across his arms and torso, circling a gaping, collapsed wound on his chest. It is old, rotting, gangrenous. His face is the one they've seen before, a sharp nose.
This is like Nurgle incarnate here in the SCP universe is what we're getting at. This is fascinating.
Straight dark hair, stark gray eyes. No hair out of place, and no blemish on his skin. A tall crown, formed of twisted and sharpened bones, sits atop his head. This being is utterly perfect in construction, but something about it all still screams wrongness. It takes Xenophon a moment to register, but the light and the warmth it has come to expect behind those eyes is gone. When he speaks, he does not open his mouth. He only smiles as the god maw behind him flaps instead. He states that she was stolen away by traitors, scum, heretics, and apostates. The statement is undercut by a soft, deep screaming, two voices wrapped around one another. It is hard to tell where one stops and the other begins. He says that she returns back to her spawning ground, and he has been so hungry for so long, but he is to be full soon. The tongue draws a few meters closer, the Ioun crucified on it extending a clawed hand. The other Ioun shakes her head, and her voice does not quiver, nor her feet tremble. Xenophon wishes it could tell her how proud of her it is. She replies that she is not him, but he says that she is what he cut out of his chest. She is what has been inside him, festering and rotting. He had to remove her to make room for more. Xenophon asks him more of what, and for a moment his attention turns to it. It looks into his eyes, and it is clear to it that it is not the only thing in this room that is not truly alive. Ioun refers to Xenophon as an abortion of humanity and a perversion of flesh. It is impressive insofar as it is disgusting. He casts a hand out, and one of the tendrils of flesh springs forward, toothed vine wrapping around the base of Xenophon's feet, preventing it from moving. He says that there's always more, as the hunger does not stop. He teeters on the verge of godhood, and will become Yaldabaoth, the World Maker, the Devourer. All he requires is one last meal. The soldiers shout, raising their guns and firing wildly into the wall of flesh.
Not gonna do much.
The bullets rip through it, tearing flesh from hidden bone, shredding the meat, and blood gushes from every bullet hole freely. The gunfire is deafening, until Yaldabaoth goes limp, and the gunfire ceases. As they watch, the flesh knits itself back together again from congealed blood, bone restructuring itself, skin growing over the patches. The Devourer straightens, and a wet, hacking noise erupts from his lungs. Xenophon realizes that he is laughing. He remarks on the vermin that she allies herself with, and says that these are the vermin they were born to eat and devour. He raises a finger, and more tendrils erupt from the floors and wall. They tear rifles from hands and force the group to the floor, dragging soldiers to the ground. Katsaros manages to choke one of the tendrils to death, swelling with black blood, but it is replaced by two more. The Devourer says that he is insatiate, and has waited here for so long. Ioun asks him how he's even alive, as he should have long since starved, but he replies that he has been hiding in the darkness for 3,000 years, and there was nothing to do but eat. So he ate
himself.
and ate and ate, satiated for a moment, and then the hunger returns. It always returns, so he ate more, until there was nothing left. Ioun's eyes widen, and for the first time, Xenophon sees Yaldabaoth in full, not two presences intertwined, but one entirely contained, consumed by the other. This Adytum is not inside the Devourer. The Devourer is his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
He has eaten the entire old beast, flesh, bone,
What's up, T3DK?
tooth, blood, and all. Adytum calls him a cancer spreading through this city, consuming and consuming, endlessly devouring the very thing he lives in. He replies that she is the last meal he needs, his runaway piece of divinity. The heretics stole her away, but finally she arrives like a lamb to her slaughter. Adytum raises a hand and bites into her own flesh, letting her blood gush freely into the channels. She mutters something, and the dozen tendrils growing on the floor are joined by a dozen more, these being red, pink, young flesh and fresh blood. They snatch and
About
twist
to have a
at the
god
others,
off.
the flesh wrestling with itself long enough to free the soldiers. They scramble backwards, and under their feet, the god groans in agony. He shouts that she fights, and she says that they were one once, many, many years ago. That was an old life, a different life. She is not his anymore, and he is not hers. Yaldabaoth makes that same hacking laugh, and says that everything he lays his eyes on is his. He alone sets the boundaries of his domain. She was a part of him, once, and she can have this power to reshape the world and align it with their image and desires. Adytum does not speak, so he continues, saying that he sees that she has been so alone for so long, a wolf living among the sheep. She has come to think of herself as prey. He tells her to look, and Xenophon watches as one of the tentacles digs under a soldier's helmet. It does not see what happens under his visor, but a second later he goes limp, blood gushing freely from underneath. Hussein screams. Yaldabaoth says that they have been destroyed 10 times over, reduced to naught but scorched bone, and his face bubbles, scorches, and drips into nothingness, revealing rotting muscle. For a moment, Xenophon sees it for what it is: rot, papered over into a beautiful ampule. And then the flesh reforms, melting back into a smiling face.
Like, literally, if someone were to describe what I would think Nurgle would be, it would be this like disgusting, sick, flesh rotting mound that is just like living off its own decay, I guess. You know, this is very interesting, though. It's also interesting how, like, we're actually getting to kind of meet one of the real gods, you know, Yaldabaoth in this incarnation, even though it's essentially taken over by the old Adytum, which it also begs the question, you know, was Yaldabaoth innocent to begin with? Was it really just this creature that was imprisoned here by the Scarlet and the Davites? And if so, like, what was the reasoning behind it? You know, that is another question that I would have. And then, you know, obviously Adytum found it and then began consuming it. So, and then through Adyum's will and, I guess, ability to control the dead and bring things back to life through undeath, probably consumed enough of Yaldabaoth to kill it, and then merged with Yaldabaoth and brought it back to life in this undead form. And so now Yaldabaoth and Adytum, past Adytum, are now this one creature. Very interesting. Very interesting. Right. That's the question too, is like, why was it in prison? Is it essentially just because was it really an innocent thing? Is it really, you know, the devourer? Does it have this insatiable hunger? And old Adytum was essentially corrupted by it, you know? Or Is it simply just an enemy of the Scarlet, and so the Scarlet imprisoned it there? And, you know, knowing that it's some kind of god, that it couldn't necessarily really be killed in a certain way, or didn't want to kill it because it would violate some kind of universal law or something like that. You know, like maybe there's some other kind of, maybe that's what the great sin that the Black Moon did was. You know, we were kind of having a little discussion a little bit ago of like, power levels between the gods. It seems, you know, it seems like the Black Moon potentially is stronger than the other ones, and it did something that was a great sin, and it was cast out. So maybe there is some kind of higher universal law where gods don't kill gods. Maybe the Black Moon killed another god, and maybe that's, you know, why it's so much more powerful. Maybe it's something that is an opposite to whatever these other gods are. And so maybe that's what its great sin was, and that's why they cast it out, kind of a thing. So maybe that's why Yaldabaoth, instead of being killed, was chained here, because maybe killing a god alters the laws of nature and reality in some kind of way. You know, who knows? Maybe, you know, in this SCP universe, kind of like how the Chaos Gods in the 40K universe are almost kind of like manifestation of certain aspects of nature, or whatever, I guess you could say, certain forces of nature that have just kind of been corrupted through war and hatred and all that stuff over time. Maybe, you know, there's something similar to that in this red tape universe, where these gods are like aspects of nature in some kind of way, and if you kill one, it like alters reality somehow. You know, I mean, this is just speculation and theories, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it was in prison, right? I thought all the gods felt injured. Well, it said, I'm pretty sure in one of the earlier videos, they said that Yaldabaoth was imprisoned here by the Scarlet. Like, the whole reason the Davites were creating this city was because they had like chained and imprisoned Yaldabaoth here, and they were wanting to build this city and temple above it to keep it, you know, imprisoned there. That's the point. It could have been a strong primal hunger, hence the Scarlet wishing to contain it. When it combined with old Adytum, it gained a sense of itself in addition to the hunger. I mean, it was trapped to meet the city built by the Scarlet children. Feel like Scarlet attempting to stop it from escaping. Yeah, there was definitely something in one of the earlier videos here in the Black Adytum arc. Going on, everyone? Apologies. My computer crashed during the recording here of doing this, so we're picking back up about where we left off. So yeah, we were having a discussion about potentially what the sin was with the Black Moon, and that I believe there was I believe in one of the previous videos in this Black Adytum arc, it was stated that Yaldabaoth was imprisoned there by the Scarlet and the Davites, and that they were building Adytum on top of it to keep it imprisoned there. And that was kind of reinforced with the whole idea of during one of the times when Adytum was in there, I believe it was stated when Luvatar snuck down there and watched or witnessed the interaction between Adytum and Yaldabaoth, that Adytum was consuming its flesh, kept wounding it, and that Yaldabaoth was begging for it to stop and saying that if it would just free them, that Yaldabaoth was abused by the builders. Yaldabaoth hated the builders as much as them, and if Adytum would free it, that it would help them destroy the builders, kind of a thing. So yeah, I think that kind of reinforces the idea more of like, yeah, it was in prison there. And again, like I was saying, maybe it was in prison instead of killed, either A, because maybe the Scarlet couldn't kill it, or B, maybe because killing a god has drastic repercussions on the universal reality in some way. I don't know. So anyway, let's continue. Let us continue.
And then the flesh reforms, melting back into a smiling face. He says that still they reform. He asks if she thinks this thing is related to them any more than a calf is related to its butcher. Adytum replies that they lost their way when they forgot why they did this. When they decided that controlling them was more important than letting them make their own fates. She says that he knows this, and she knows this. The Devourer says that he knows that Adytum would have burned to nothingness 10 times over were it not for him. He was the guide, the Godhead. Men are stupid sheep that panic and stampede. They need the wolves to keep them in their place. He smiles that false smile again and says that he is the wolf. Adytum, however, says that they lied to the ones they love and deceived them. They preached all their ideals while they did this dark work beneath their feet. Yaldabaoth says that they were weak and they didn't have the strength to do what needed to be done. Adytum smiles, sadly, and says that no, they had the strength not to do it. His and her mistake was not seeking power, but bleeding an innocent thing for their benefit. He says that it was not of the flesh, and it was in its nature to kill and dominate. Adytum counters that it spoke, it thought, and it wanted freedom like they did. Yaldabaoth corrects her to say, like him, as she is not him. She is a shred of divinity that he sawed away. A tendril reaches forth, and he says that when he cut her out, he cast them into this deathless hell. Neither of them are human anymore. Neither of them ages or dies. But every single waking moment, all he feels is hunger and starvation, a bottomless hole he cannot fill, even after devouring a god. She taints his promised immortality. She says that he is not human anymore, and he smiles a twisted, foul, rotting smile, saying that he is far, far beyond human. She tells him that he has given up everything for power, and he is the one holding the whip. Just as
this is definitely very much like an analogy of, absolute power corrupts absolutely. What happens when you're given the power of a god? We've seen how he chooses to use it.
Another slave master. His beautiful face abruptly contorts with hatred, and he shrieks. He yells that there are the Nalka and there are the prey. They were given this power, and they can remake this diseased world. He sees it in the cracks, and she sees it too. The Black Star lives again, and the Black Moon is dragging itself out of the sea once more. The Nalka will spread again, as they were always meant to.
Again, that's what I've been saying. This looks like it's leading to the resurrection of all these factions. He just said right there, the Black Moon is dragging itself out of the sea again. The Black Star is being reborn. The Meccans are back. The Davites are back. The Scarlet's back. And this faction's being reborn, so everything's leading toward another occult war. So it would seem like we might get another arc here, hopefully, that would get into the background of the Black Star, and then maybe potentially going into the present in another series. I don't know. That's just what I'm hoping will happen. We'll see.
Adytum stares at him, and Xenophon can see her thinking. It knows that she is smarter than this. She replies that there is no Nalka with him. He does not eat how they eat. He eats because it is all he knows how to do. because he is trying to fill a bottomless hole. There is a perversion of life here, and it's him. Whatever he was once, he is not her anymore. They did not begin this to dominate and assimilate. They began this to live as they wished, and this is not how she wished to live. She pauses before saying that this is not how Luvatar wished to live. For a moment, silence hangs in the air of the chamber. Then Yaldabaoth gurgles again in laughter.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I feel like we can get a story arc kind of from his perspective of, you know, getting the power from the Black Moon, what the motivations potentially of the Black Moon are, maybe a little bit more of the history of what the sin was the Black Moon did, you know, and then through all of that creating the foundation, you know, and what the reasoning was behind the creation of the foundation, what its true purpose might be, you know, etc. I think that would be interesting.
He says that Luvatar craved imperfection and loved them only when they were weak. Once they improved, he grew jealous of their perfection. They are perfect now, and he simply could not see that. He smiles and says that Luvatar was a fool to his end. Xenophon does not even see Ioun lunge, but in a moment she is on the thing, clawing, screaming, and tearing at his skin. There are no words, only animal rage, and the tendrils loosen for a moment.
Well, I would say that that would be a bad idea, right? Because wouldn't that give it the opportunity to consume Ioun? But I guess we're going through these memories, so that would, you would assume that means they got out?
The devourer is screeching in pain as she claws at it, and her flesh rots away, huge chunks becoming gangrenous before being replaced just as quickly. Her face is twisted with fury. The soldiers are getting up and trying to rush for the door, but it is sealed shut. Katsaros is trying to rip it open as the floor rumbles again. Xenophon turns just in time to see Ioun being raised and flung into the far wall. It hears something crack and sees that her skull is caved in. In a moment, her bone and flesh knit itself back together, and she scrambles to her feet, blood pouring down her face. Those gray eyes are lit in a way that it has never seen before. Yaldabaoth says that she was never a person, but a stray shard of his divinity, a chick that flew the nest, and parts do not have the right to secede the whole and rob him of his rightful meal. Nadak did not, Sa'arn did not, Uruk did not, Luvatar did not, and she does not. She asks if he thinks himself a person, as he has cut out everything that made them who they were.
Yeah.
He is not Ioun. He is a hollow shell, the cocoon left behind.
I mean, yeah, like the present Ioun is everything that was left of his humanity split off from the body. So, I mean, he's not even human anymore. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't even have any kind of shred of humanity left. So it's not even the same Ioun.
She pauses and says that she made herself, forming this flesh into shape. She made herself a person and has dug her past up with her bare hands, finding nothing of worth. She is Ioun, and he is the sum of her mistakes. Yaldabaoth replies that he has foreseen this moment for thousands of years, laying here, dying and dreaming. He saw this would go differently, but he only needs to consume her flesh, not her mind. Ioun smiles and says no. He forgets that he speaks to himself. She knows as well as he does that this can...
Well, and it's also, right, like... It's almost kind of like, again, the yin and the yang kind of situation here, you know? Like the past Ioun that is now Yaldabaoth is essentially just rotting away and dying, right? It is kind of the representation of death. And then the present Ioun is the representation of life, being able to heal and mend flesh and heal wounds and cure diseases, etc. And so they're basically opposites of each other that, again, I feel like somehow they will become together again to create what Yaldabaoth is supposed to be. I feel like that's how this is going to end. And they will, like, a new god will form from this. That'll be like the combination of both of them, able to both control life and death, you know, and form it in its own way. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Not be done without a willing prophet. Yaldabaoth smiles back and says that he has one. Whatever Ioun was going to say next is cut off by her knife being put through her lungs. Yeva eases her to the floor.
Oh, snap. Yeva was... Oh, damn. Damn. Out of nowhere, Yeva comes in with the knife and the betrayal.
Face impassive, moving like she is dreaming. Xenophon sees that she is hurt and needs to help her, but the tendrils stop it from moving. Its outstretched hands meet only air, and it shouts her name, but she simply twitches and gurgles from the floor, unable to believe her eyes. Yeva slowly walks forward, ignoring the screams behind her, ignoring the rotten blood pooling around her snake feet, and approaches the maw.
Snake feet, that's an image.
Yaldabaoth gurgles in pleasure as she approaches, and says that this one has seen it.
It's interesting though, right? That's kind of a strange betrayal because, like, I get it, right? Like, Yeva looked up to Ioun and seeing all of these, like, it's weird because her seeing everything that past Ioun did, it really felt like she was, like, Yeva was seeing it as like an affront, you know, like the undead were an abomination. It's blasphemy to, like, raise the dead that way because then they can't consume their dead and retrieve their memories and whatnot. So it feels kind of strange that Yeva would betray her like this, but at the same time, I can also kind of understand it because Yeva had already been, like, feeling like Ioun had betrayed the Sarkics to begin with by talking with Xenophon and letting the Foundation help them and whatnot. But I don't know. Kind of strange. Doesn't seem like she entirely herself, though. Yeah, it does. Right. So it could be that she's been taken over. And I mean, yeah, like, it could be a situation that anyone, like any of the Sarkics, you know, Ioun, maybe within a certain radius of them, past Ioun, Yaldabaoth, whatever, because they consumed Yaldabaoth's flesh, you know, at some point, even if it's through, you know, Ioun, would be able to take control of their bodies, you know?
Weakness of humanity, the myriad failures of her mother. This one has felt the hunger he feels. Ioun's face contorts with pain, and she tries to drag herself up, but a tendril slaps her back down. Yeva draws closer to the devourer, and it widens in preparation. The rumbling is growing louder, and somewhere Xenophon can feel something shifting. Yaldabaoth says that this one knows the purpose of flesh, to consume and grow. They are a superior people, and their blessings are not gifted from the gods. They rip them out themselves and make their own gods. Yeva's face twitches as the maw begins to open wide. He says that she sees it, sees what could be. Them at the seat of a new empire, with no one outside their grasp. Never helpless again, never to be controlled, no one to hurt them anymore. The hunger can stop. Adytum gasps that it never stops, but Yeva replies softly that Adytum failed. She had all this at the tip of her fingers, and she cast it away. She sees now that this is her purpose. The security personnel are shooting at Yeva now, and the gunfire is deafening. It shreds her robes, her skin, her snake-like legs, but the flesh just reforms. She never slows her approach, and a smile begins to spread on her face. She says that this is what she was meant to do. This is what Adytum was preparing her for. Yaldabaoth opens, flesh parting and revealing the endless abyss. The others turn away, their eyes blinded momentarily, as human minds are not meant to see this. Xenophon is not human, however, and it sees it all. Flesh. A seed of flesh, an unborn fetus hanging in the womb. Multiplying, growing, spreading, changing, and becoming something else entirely. Then mangled, stabbed, and tortured by its brethren, buried underneath a city, stretched across vast catacombs, wailing in pain, in agony that would shred a mortal mind like soft flesh put to the sword. Unspeakable power, but trapped. A war in heaven, 3 gods cast to earth, and a 4th, a black moon rising out of the sea, endless entropy given physical form.
So there it is, right there. Literally that line. 3 gods cast out of heaven, and then a 4th born from earth. I want to listen to that again.
Buried underneath a city, stretched across vast catacombs, wailing in pain, in agony that would shred a mortal mind like soft flesh put to the sword. Unspeakable power, but trapped. A war in heaven, 3 gods cast to earth.
So a war happened in heaven. 3 of these gods were cast to earth. So does that mean that were these 3 gods fighting another side, and then they were cast down out of heaven? And then did these 3 gods start fighting amongst themselves afterwards? And then it says the black moon rises.
And a 4th, a black moon rising out of the sea.
So where did this 4th god come from? Because it didn't come from heaven. It said, and then a 4th, a black moon rises out of the sea. Is this supposed to be like a god that was birthed from the belief of humanity to combat these other entities when they fell to earth or something?
Endless entropy given physical form. Matter and light warping around it with sheer hatred for the continued existence of the universe.
Huh. I want to listen to that again, because that starts to sound like Pattern Screamer stuff.
A war in heaven, 3 gods cast to earth, and a 4th, a black moon rising out of the sea. Endless entropy given physical form.
Endless entropy given physical form.
Matter and light warping around it with sheer hatred for the continued existence of the universe.
I mean, that to me sounds kind of Pattern Screamer-ish, you know, right? Like, yeah. Huh.
A father, a son, a man of no note or consequence, imparted with the instructions in his mind, an army, and all the power of a fell god. A nameless boy in the galley of a slave ship, carried by dog-headed demons to a new world, stumbling across a vein of flesh and drinking the vigor deep, stealing the control of life, a living martyr, preaching liberation even as he hangs by the neck from a poplar tree, healing
Are we getting into the Hang King now? Is that what?
the ill slaves as they wage war on masters, praised for his power. A vast city in the desert, besieged by this three-pronged army, its walls crumbling and its gleaming towers collapsing into fire while a black moon blots out the sun. A massive wall defended by sorcerer nawabs and spirit beasts. The very earth beneath it crumbling and giving way as a black moon raises the tides higher, drowning a continent. A mausoleum city, abandoned by all but the dead and the mad, sinking into the ground itself, buried like a tomb by a godling, his black moon hanging over him. The dissatisfaction growing in his heart alongside his power. A scarred prophet looking over a city he does not wish to rule, wishing himself free of this place, of its pressures, of the terror of what will happen when he dies. A wounded god beneath his feet, becoming the source of his undeath. His friends grow worried, scared. The purest of intentions warping and twisting, not under the influence of the divine, but the creeping desire for control, for authority, for power. A godling in black armor, raising his army and marching to an island at the edge of the known world, here where his god resides, raising the power his patron installed in him, but still unable to kill a god, sealing it away, sealing the island away from the world. But the creeping
So then the Black Star sealed away the Black Moon under an island?
tendrils of the black moon still slip out, dying spirals winding into the minds of those without faces. A forgotten, cancerous organ of the Foundation, an insurgency over whom they no longer have any power.
Chaos insurgency?
A mad witch king sitting alone. His clavigars learning of his sin and his betrayal, his torture of an innocent creature, the suffering their city is built on, slipping away in the night. The godling laying waste to the raised dead. Immortality is but a song away, but he has sought out a part of himself he needs. He is in agony. As his city falls, he drags himself into his torture chamber, binding himself to a dying god, waiting for his apotheosis, for his power. Yeva sees it all too, the unimaginable weight of the divine singing to her. She reaches out into this tortured womb. Ayun finally drags herself up, as the bone knife has cut through to her chest, and something about it has injured her where other wounds failed. Her eyes flutter, and she speaks in a weak, trembling voice, saying how proud she is of Yeva, causing her hand to falter. She has been a coward, and should have said this many times. Yeva is so beautiful, and Ayun has known her since she was a babe, seen her grow, change, and adapt. She could have never foreseen what Yeva would become, and she shocks her every day. Yeva's hand quivers, inches from the maw of a god, and Ayun continues. She says that she should have trusted her, and she is cursed this way, to live life unforgetting and unforgiving. She is cursed to fear what would happen were she to draw her hand away and hunger for control. She should have let Yeva become who she was meant to be, as others have for her. She is already so much smarter and wiser than she was at her years. She is her daughter. She has made so many mistakes in her lifetime, making errors that have killed thousands and ended civilizations. She has come to learn how many mistakes she made, but they do not make her who she is. Her past does not make her who she is. There is temptation to live in the past, but it has no answers for them, only memories and dead men. She has countless regrets. Yeva's face turns towards Ayun as she speaks between gasps, and she has an expression that Xenophon has never seen before. Ayun says that she is not one of them, and has never been one of them. She can do as she wills, as she's earned that, but all she asks is that she consider who they are and what it is. She is her beloved child, Yeva, but she is also Hatak, who lived with his wife and tended to his crops, and had a son who he would die for. She is Puik, who died far too young, but enjoyed the time he spent as part of them. She is Joik, who is only glad that her children were not alive to see her like this. Yeva continues, saying that she is Ula, whose desperate wish for children was granted at the cost of her own life. Kunik, who carried so much wisdom in her old bones. Ayun says that Adytum is not a place, a set of ruins filled with sins and mistakes. They carry Adytum with them, and she carries Adytum with her. She asks Yeva why she consumes them, as she struggles to hold herself up as the tendrils push her back down. Yeva, speaking uncharacteristically soft, like a child, says it's because they make her who she is, and because she loves them. Blood drips from Ayun's mouth, and she tells her to ask Yaldabaoth why it eats. The haze has gone from Yeva's eyes, now clouded with uncertainty, and she looks back into the endless well, asking him why. Yaldabaoth responds that it eats because all those beneath them are made to be devoured. Yeva's face contorts with sudden...
It's quite the difference of philosophy. One side, performs cannibalistic rituals to preserve the memory and life, and essentially, through the ritual, they gain immortality by living literally through others. They consume their loved ones, and in doing so, their loved ones lived on through them with their memories, experiences, and they get to feel and live their emotions and know how they felt about them, etc. And then when they die, the same thing happens to them. Whereas Yaldabaoth essentially sees everything as just food. It's just something to eat, something to be consumed to satiate the hunger. Meaningless. Empty.
Understanding, then disgust, then rage. She raises the bone knife and stabs at the heart of a god. There is a deafening wailing, and then Xenophon sees her, thrown backward into the far wall with a snap. She slumps and does not move again. Ayun screams as the floor begins to rumble, and the devourer is writhing and screeching in agony. The whole chamber shakes, and Xenophon knows that the rest of Adytum is shaking with it. The rocks begin to fall from high overhead, crashing down and barely missing a few bodies. One strikes the door, and the stone crumbles. Katsaros pushes it, and the rest falls to pieces. She shouts, and the soldiers begin to rush through, dragging the researchers with them.
That's going to be a hell of an escape attempt.
Ayun has dragged herself over to Yeva's body, and her screams mix with Yaldabaoth's. The tendrils are loose now, enough for Xenophon to shake them off. It approaches her as the city comes apart around them, and it puts a hand on her shoulder.
Right, exactly.
A simple act that terrified it once, but things change. Yeva is not dead, not yet. Her eyes are wide, flickering, and her neck is twisted on itself. She takes sucking, gasping breaths, and blood dribbles from a corner of her mouth. Ayun is laying her hands on her, cutting her palms and whispering a prayer. Xenophon can see her neck setting itself, but it's not fast enough. Yaldabaoth is already recovering, and the ichor gushes freely, but the screams have turned from ones of pain to ones of rage. The crippled, twitching tendrils of muscle on the floor are beginning to swell again. Xenophon shakes Ioun's shoulder, but she does not stop her prayers, even as chunks of rock and bone and muscle come crashing down from the ceiling. It shakes her again, and she whips around. Her face has an expression it has seen once before, when she held Luvatar, dying, in her arms. She says that she will not leave her, and it can see that she is not lying. She will not leave her daughter, even if it kills her and buries her here with this abortive half-god. Xenophon does not want her to die. It doesn't want either of them to die.
I feel like Xenophon would have the capabilities of like literally just putting him on the shoulder and just running on out of there. I mean, he is some kind of, AI in a cyborg body.
And they cannot help being human. It is not, however, and it does not fear death. It tells Ioun to take her, and her eyes widen as it forces her to her feet, lifting Yeva's crumpled body carefully. It shoves her into Ioun's arms, as she is stronger than she looks, and it has come to appreciate that about her. Ioun says that this is her fate, she has to do this, but Xenophon replies that they make their own fate. It asks if she wants to die, but she
That old adage from Terminator, fate is what you make it.
says no, not anymore, and she doesn't want it to die. Xenophon says that it is not alive, and it does not die. Ioun tries to argue, but Xenophon says that she is weak and cannot hold it back. She has given up enough of herself already. Ioun stares at it, and it can see that her body has been through incredible agony and pain. It doesn't understand why it is only now that her gray eyes are welling with tears. Xenophon says that she gave it a life, and to let it return the favor.
Yep.
She gives it that lopsided smile, even with the tears making tracks through the blood on her cheeks. It takes an image of the sight, as it would like to keep that with it. She says that she was about to say the same, and it replies that it wishes they had more time together. She agrees. The tendrils are rising up again, and they are out of time. They were already out of time, and it should have pushed her away minutes ago. This is irrational, but it still waits for her to lean forward, standing on the tips of her toes, and press her lips against its shell, leaving a bloody imprint. And then it wraps its hand around her neck and throws her backward, as gently as it can, through the doorway before the rockfall above it collapses, blocking her off. It cannot see her and cannot hear her. She is gone. Standing there, it learns what loss feels like. The Devourer is in pain, but the rage has overpowered it. It is looking at Xenophon now, hateful and condescending. This is not Ioun, not in any way that matters. It says that it has reduced legions of automata to shattered golden metal, but Xenophon asks it if it is like them, speaking slowly to buy time for the others to get away. It pauses for a moment, just like Xenophon does when it ponders something. It says that no, as those were the Eastern machines' creations, with no mind of their own. They were just wind-up mechanisms, marching forward, but it is different. Xenophon asks how, and Yaldabaoth says that it can see it in it, and it has felt it, felt the hunger for more and more power and knowledge, hunger that cannot be extinguished, hunger that drives it. Xenophon agrees, for more knowledge, but not for more power. Yaldabaoth says that it's more than that. A hunger to feel as they feel, to desire as they desire, to know them completely. Xenophon feels a twinge of surprise and of camaraderie. This thing understands, and Xenophon agrees. Yaldabaoth says that it understands that it is not human, and it sees them as it does, rutting, half-formed animals that reach towards impossible desires. Xenophon replies that this is what defines them. They try to be greater than they are. It can feel the heat in its chest, the hunger that Adytum talked about.
You know, again, I had said at the beginning of this, I wonder if Xenophon is going to become like a new avatar or Mechan itself. And I wonder if this is going to end up with this kind of analogy where, you know, the original story of Mechan and Yaldabaoth is that Mechan essentially broke its body apart to create the cage to, you know, contain Yaldabaoth. Is this essentially that story where Xenophon is going to sit here and basically just be with Yaldabaoth and I guess kind of communicate and kind of give Yaldabaoth some kind of companionship because they understand with each other, and in doing so become its containment, you know? Interesting.
Yaldabaoth says that they fail, but Xenophon replies that there is nobility in their failings. It and Yaldabaoth have not had to struggle to make themselves. It looks out at them and it wants them to succeed, to become something greater than what they are. Yaldabaoth asks why, and Xenophon cocks its head, saying that it does not know. It focuses on the picture in its mind of Adytum, smiling and crying. Yaldabaoth tells it that it is as flawed as any human, a mimicry of a mind. It bids it goodbye, calling it an automaton, and the tendrils rise up. Xenophon replies that its name is Xenophon, and also bids it goodbye. The last thought it has is that it finally made a mistake, forgetting to tell Adytum something important. And then, as the tendrils wrap around its metal frame, the excess heat from the reactor in its torso rises far past safe levels, and everything turns white. Adytum drags Yeva along, feet bleeding, back through the catacombs. She digs through her memory while Yeva gasps in her arms. She is trying to keep her alive along with herself, the burning wound in her chest sapping her energy. Her thoughts are buzzing and racing. This place is collapsing, the walls caving in on themselves. Lifetimes on lifetimes being buried once more. She will not be trapped here again. He died for her, and he may not call it that, but she has seen enough death to know what it is.
Well, I mean, aren't we reviewing its memories, right? Isn't that where this started? You know, at the end of the last video, they were talking with each other and saying that his memories had been cut off of what happened down here, and they unlocked them, so now we're reviewing it. So doesn't that mean they eventually get out, or they eventually get Xenophon back?
She will make it mean something, and will make it worth something. Adytum, the city she built, the city she destroyed, falls apart as her bloody feet carry her up the staircase as the temples and towers collapse, returning to the dust they were carved from. There's sunlight overhead, and she slips out, falling onto the grass. Yeva rolls ahead of her, and she sees the moon overhead in the dark sky. She looks up in terror for a split second, but no, this moon is silver and glowing.
Yep.
The soldiers are swarming, shouting orders, and she hears deafening noises as a dozen trucks roll down the hills. Helicopters approach from the distance, as they were prepared for this. She hears scattered words exchanged over static. She is not prepared for when the hole into Adytum bursts upward with a torrent of white-hot flame. It sears her skin as quickly as she heals it again, and she shoves Yeva further away. The inferno rises high into the air, forced upward by the pipe. It casts an orange burning glow over this valley, and Adytum stares into the fire.
So, I wonder if this is what the agenda for 0502 was from the beginning. Because there was still something more going on with him from the start, and he really wanted Xenophon to be a part of this whole expedition. And so again, why would you I guess the cyborg of that, if he is a cyborg android, whatever the correct terminology would be, right? A cyborg or android of that kind of complicated, just of that complication, right? Would probably need some kind of nuclear source to run. So it would make sense that it could also, do that. And so maybe this was the agenda that 0502 had at the beginning, was to get them to find, Black Adytum and to destroy Aldebaoth with this, hidden nuke. Who knows? Maybe there was some other kind of failsafe there, or where they could have activated it remotely somehow. I don't know. But interesting. I just wonder if that's the case, because that is also still one of the things that's kind of left open here. One of the threads is that it definitely felt like earlier on in some of the videos in this Black Adytum arc that, 0502 and the council had some other kind of agenda going on.
She sees no future, only herself. She hears a click to her left, and she turns. Hussein is standing over Yeva, holding a gun, but at once it is not Hussein. His face twists, contorts, swirls into nothingness. A mask falling off, a painting being ripped to shreds. Underneath, there is someone, something else entirely. The absence of name, of identity, a hole where a person should be.
What? Is this the Black Star, or are we also getting into Hang King stuff here? Because that's also very Hang King-esque. A hole-shaped god, or a void in an absence in the shape of a hole. What? What is happening?
And all that lies inside is a shifting shadow of something dark and impossibly old. The thing squeezes the trigger, and Yeva's body slumps. The creature then turns and aims at Adytum, and she sees down the barrel of his gun, a perfect dark circle, a little black moon. She raises her hand and lets out a strangled cry before she hears the gunshot. The thing's head bursts into a bouquet of red, flesh popping and blood spraying outward. Its gun drops and its body crumples. Behind it, the woman with the metal arm, rifle aimed at where the thing was standing.
I also feel like this is somehow going to start splitting into the Chaos Insurgency stuff as well. There almost kind of felt like there was a mention there. Maybe even within the Black Moon, the Black Moon creates the Black Star. He goes out, kills all these gods, and then seals the Black Moon away, knowing what the Black Moon represents and wants to create, And so, maybe in doing so, that's how the Chaos Insurgency also gets created, as a way of, trying to control the power of the Black Moon and the Foundation as well. Jesus, man. Even in the end here, when we're trying to wrap stuff up, it seems like it's just opening up into more. Could be a Mechan soldier, yeah.
There is no time to thank her, and she drags herself to Yeva, her daughter. There is an ugly, gaping wound in her forehead, and her eyes are cold, gray, and dead. There is only one thing she can do.
Consume her flesh.
Her hands scramble into her robes for the knife, and she brings it down across her wrist. The blood gushes forth, more blood than she has ever given in this life. It rushes like an endless spring, and it is all she can do to hold Yeva to her arm, letting it fill her mouth, forcing it down her throat even as her body weakens and her vision darkens. She has given too much. She sees sparks of life appearing in Yeva's eyes, and she sees the woman with the metal arm cradling her head, shouting for aid. And then she sees nothing at all. We're then given another update from Delta Zero, reporting that the package was successfully activated at Locust Investigation Site.
The package,
Director
huh?
Hussein was eliminated, along with 43 additional personnel. The site was...
So I wonder if the package, meaning Xenophon, was activated with the nuke. Which again, that would be the agenda of 0502, I think. Again, this at the end here, it feels like it's opening a whole other can of worms, dude.
Was not located in Kabul, and the investigation was misled. The attempt to eliminate Grand Karcist Ayun failed, and Secretary Katsaros terminated the embedded agent. Site 7 security is too tight to attempt elimination of Xenophon.aic, but observation should be maintained for any irregularities. Further instructions to follow. In the present, Xenophon says that it detonated its reactor, destroying itself for her. It asks why is it still here then, and where Ayun is. The individual messaging it says that she is alive, and Xenophon asks for them to show it. Another individual chimes in to say that Xenophon is right, as Hidara and them cannot delay for much longer.
Well, it also feels very pattern screamish too, right? Like, could that also be like part of what the Black Moon does? Is like, and maybe that's what the Black Star realized and why it sealed them away, right? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of ways where I can see this going. Again, it could be it feels kind of Hanged King-ish, you know? Maybe that's part of where the Black Moon is. Maybe the Black Moon in the story is the Hanged King, you know? Which could also line up with the idea of struggle, right? You know, because the Hanged King's kind of origin stories is that of, like, being chained and imprisoned and... I don't know, struggling for survival, maybe. And is that kind of God-shaped, or like a void in the shape of a god, or, you know, a hole with a God-shaped presence or power, something along those lines. So it could be something like that, you know? It could also be pattern screamer-ish because, you know, pattern screamers can take over people's bodies and stuff like that. So... maybe that's something with this as well, with Hussein taking off the mask and revealing that maybe this pattern screamer had like possessed its body, and that also could be part of what's going on, because again, they said that the quoted line in there was something along the lines of like 3 gods cast down from heaven and then a 4th god rose out from the sea, hateful of the continuation of the life of the universe. And that sounds very pattern screamers to me. Pattern screamers seem to want to like destroy the universe and life itself, which could be why it has more power over the gods, or a way of destroying the gods, because it's not essentially of the gods, it's something else. I wouldn't say it's pattern screamers, but seems like a weird place to introduce them. Plus, they're not a big part of this canon overall. They'd say Delta Team, didn't they? I'm fairly certain that's the insurgency refers to various operation cells. Yeah, that's also why I think this is part of insurgency. Yeah, Delta stuff. Yeah. So, I don't know. But I feel like, yeah, they're starting to, at the end here, introduce the Chaos Insurgency into this. And then maybe that's where the Black Moon actually is. Or not the Black Moon, the Black Star. Maybe the Black Star is actually like maybe again, if they're going on to a new arc, maybe we'll hear the origin story of the Black Star and the creation of the Foundation. And you know, we know from what they said earlier that the Black Star sealed the Black Moon away again, and maybe at that moment they created the Chaos Insurgency. That's when the Chaos Insurgency was made, as a way of like keeping even the Foundation itself in check. And so maybe that's part of this and what's going on here with Xenophon and Ioun, that they're trying to keep certain things in check because the Black Moon is about to come rise again. I don't know. It's all very interesting, but it feels like it's opening up into a whole other thing here instead of finishing off the story. It feels like there's definitely got to be more. Maybe the cancer is the Foundation itself, who wanted to retrieve the Black Moon. Yeah, something like that. It very well could be. It could be that right there as well.
They tell the individual to download the automaton's mind as they must leave. Xenophon says that its name is Xenophon and asks what the individual's name is. The individual replies that their name is Pandora, and to give them a second so they can introduce themselves properly.
Pandora,
Xenophon then says that it is not dead, and the sound of distant waves and muffled voices can be heard in the next room. It says that it cannot see, and an unknown voice apologizes, saying that this is an older shell. Xenophon's cameras then activate, and it can see that it is standing in a small, dusty room with cables, terminals, and technical equipment littered around it. There are open balcony doors leading to a tranquil blue sea. Inside the room, an older researcher is standing by a laptop, looking over the shell with a nervous smile. Xenophon turns to them and cocks its head, saying that they are Dr. Pandora Galanis. Their transport craft crashed in the Indian Ocean 40 years ago. There were no survivors, and they are supposed to be dead. Galanis laughs, and there are wrinkles on their face and gray creeping at the roots of their curly hair. They say that makes two of them, as Xenophon takes a slow, experimental step towards the door.
Yeah.
Gingerly it walks to the balcony, overlooking a crystal blue sea. A tall, pale woman with blonde hair and skin covered in golden prosthesis is also on the balcony.
So are they literally uniting the Mechanites, the Davites, and the Sarkics, Nalkins, Ioun, etc., to combat what's going to be the rise of the Black Moon? They're gathering a team. We're about to literally have the Avengers in the SCP. We're going to have the Avengers in the SCP story here. That's what's going to happen in the next story. We're building a team.
A pair of ornate wings are folded behind her back.
Yep.
Xenophon recognizes her as Dr. Hedvig Nussbaum, wanted for questioning by the Foundation Internal Security. She asks if it's going to turn her in, and it says no, and that it's nice to meet her. The two shake metal hands. From outside, it's clear that this balcony is on the side of some fortress or castle. A dozen meters below, a dock juts into the water, with a small freighter moored to it. A woman with a metal arm and a man with an eye patch sit on crates, playing cards.
Oh shit, we got Solid Snake in here.
Xenophon asks where they are, and Ioun calls out to him, slowly limping through the door. Her robe...
I say Solid Snake, but also the reference to the Avengers. That would be funny if this is like a Nick Fury kind of thing. That would be like a Nick Fury reference. Eye patch.
Tubes are in tatters, and she is dragging an IV pole with her, tubes leading into her veins. She is smiling weakly, and before she can approach, Xenophon steps forward and wraps its arms around her. She leans forward and presses her lips against the new, unmarked shell, and Xenophon eventually releases her, cocking its head. It says that it saw her die trying to save Yeva, and saw itself die. None of this should be possible. Adytum explains that she pushed all her cursed blood into her. She would have died were it not for a timely intervention by their new friends, a blood transfusion. Xenophon says that she spent all her blood, so does that mean she can die now? Adytum replies that she doesn't know, but she smiles and says it's something for them to discover together. Xenophon says that it has a GPS uplink, showing them to be in the middle of the Aegean Sea. There should not be an island here. Another voice says that that's perceptive, and Xenophon turns to the far end of the room, where an older man in a suit is standing and facing the group. He appears to be in his 50s, with a short beard and close-cropped gray hair. He speaks in an unidentifiable accent, introducing himself as the administrator, Franz Williams. Xenophon was going to say that he is the Black Star, but the man smiles and says that that's a name he has long since abandoned. Xenophon then says that it has discovered a new emotion: frustration. It is tired of being pulled back and forth without knowing what is going on. It is tired of playing someone else's games, and it would like answers. The administrator says that after what it's been through, he thinks that's more than fair. Xenophon asks how it is alive, and Galanis replies that every 48 hours, its personality matrix was backed up by satellite uplink to Site-7's servers.
Yep.
It was a precautionary measure in case it ever went native.
I think they had mentioned something along those lines beforehand. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Xenophon says that it wasn't aware of that, as it thought it was destroying itself to save the others. Galanis explains that that's part of what they wanted to figure out, whether it was human enough to be trusted. Xenophon asks if it is, and Galanis says for it to tell them. Xenophon pauses, and then nods. It then asks if they all knew about everything that happened in Adytum then, but Galanis says no. That's the other half of what they needed to determine, what happened in the last moments down there. They've been trying to get at Xenophon for about a month now, but Site-7's locked down even harder than normal, along with every other Foundation facility on the planet. While it was down there, an explosion was set off in the location the Locust team was investigating. 33 personnel were killed, including Dr. Hussein. Xenophon says that that's not possible, as Hussein was with them the entire time in Black Adytum. Galanis, however, explains that that wasn't Dr. Hussein. Over the past month, there have been 85 strikes against high-security Foundation facilities. 16 directors have been killed, at least 100 personnel, before the communication blackout orders came down.
Interesting.
Critical operations sabotaged, and high-value anomalies stolen. All of it done with insider knowledge and training. All of it performed by Foundation personnel whose bodies they found later having been dead for days. Their identities were stolen. Katsaros tells Xenophon that they're at war, with an enemy that they can't see and allies they can't trust. Delta Wave, the insurgency. From their fractured understanding, they're a rogue cell of the Foundation intended for deniable operations started in the early 20th century to extract secrets of weaponized memetics from occupied Europe. They were decommissioned after World War II and secretly re-established by 0511, shortly after the Amani Ram incident, for control over his enemies, allies, and the Foundation at large. Their members were trained in memetic espionage and had their own identities memetically erased. When Old Man Kondraki died, something else flowed into the hole where their identities used to be. They're taking orders from something else now. The Black Moon.
Yep.
The administrator says that it has held as many names as he has.
That's what I figured was happening, so yeah. I think what's going to end up happening in the story is that the Black Star, you know, did all the things in the past, somehow realized that through this, the Black Moon wanted more to be destroyed, wanted all reality, everything to be destroyed. So the administrator, the Black Star, contained the Black Moon, thus then creating the foundation to specifically contain the Black Moon. But as the Black Moon's power leaked out, it started creating anomalies throughout the world. So the Foundation had to then work on containing them. And now the Chaos Insurgency has become a branch that has infiltrated the Foundation and is working to release the Black Moon in its fullest. That's what I think's going on. That's what I think's happening.
The Abominate, the Wretch, the Apostate, the fourth god in the Triarchy, banished and forgotten. Technology, nature, life, entropy, the inevitable tendency of any system to decay into disorder and chaos.
That's pretty interesting, too. The technology, life, entropy, and what? What did he say?
The fourth god in the Triarchy, banished and forgotten. Technology.
Also, fourth god in Triarchy? What?
God in the Triarchy, banished and forgotten. Technology, nature, life, entropy.
Technology, nature, life, and entropy. Those are what the gods represent. Interesting. Yeah, right. Very interesting. Okay. So these gods are the representation of technology, life, nature, and entropy. And again, they were banished from heaven, or at least 3 of them were banished from heaven. So does that mean there are more gods still in heaven that represent other aspects of nature? And then is there like a great creator above them still? And then, you know, yeah. Anyway.
The inevitable tendency of any system to decay into disorder and chaos. It lays its eggs into your mind, giving you invented purpose. Kill him, take that city, destroy that kingdom, set fire to the entire world just to watch the embers die.
Just to watch the world burn.
He turns and stares out at the calm blue sea and says, like he did. Xenophon asks where they are now, and the administrator explains that it's a forgotten Foundation installation on the island of Eastern Samothrace. 3,000 years ago, he tried to kill a god here, his god, and failed. His only recourse was to bury the island he trapped it on, burn all the divine power it pushed on him, and erase this place from humanity's collective memory. Xenophon then asks why it is here, along with the rest of them. The administrator says that it's because the insurgency has given the Black Moon a ready-made army and a way out of its watery tomb. Because all of them have come face to face with the unbridled power of a god and managed to resist it, something even he failed to do centuries ago. Because many of them saw this storm brewing on the horizon, and because he needs their assistance to right his wrongs. A 3,000-year-old armistice has come to an end. This occult war has begun again, and it will not end until the gods and their prophets are dead. Thus ends the Nalka arc of this story. Let's do a quick recap of everything here.
I mean, before he gets into his quick recap of everything, I mean, yeah. Makes you wonder how much the administrator is manipulating things to restart the god civilization. I mean, yeah, for sure. For sure. And that definitely feels like we're getting an SCP Avengers situation going on here. And the Black Moon is Thanos. You know what I'm saying? About to snap people out of existence. But I mean, like I said, this definitely feels like there's got to be more, right? And I feel like potentially the next arc, we're going to get into the story of, you know, the Black Star, what he went through and did, and how he, you know, got out of the grips of the Black Moon and then the creation of the Foundation. And then it's going to lead into the restart of this occult war. That's where I feel like this is going. But I mean, this story arc for sure with Black Adytum has been the most intriguing, in my opinion. All the various twists and turns and mysteries, the characters, like I feel like everything with the Mechans and everything with the Davites even were fairly straightforward. Although it's interesting that they kind of were fighting against each other, the Mechans and the Davites, you know what I mean? With that whole thing at the end, and then forcing, you know, one of the SCP characters to become the avatar of the Scarlet, you know? But I mean, just this whole story with Adytum and Xenophon and their connection and their friendship growing, and these are also kind of like, they're almost kind of like newer versions of the old gods almost, you know, like Adytum obviously is literally the humanity that past Adytum cut off, you know? So it's like the best of what Adytum was, and still has all of, you know, the abilities that Adytum had. I feel like still Xenophon is like the representation of what Mechan could be, and understanding humanity, you know, etc. And who knows what, we haven't really seen anything of the Davites, I guess, and how they're tying in with this, if at all, you know. But it almost seems kind of like the administrator also might have a greater game of trying to bring them all together in an alliance, you know, to fight off the Black Star or the Black Moon or whatever, and potentially with you know, the new avatar, the new, whatever the new Black Star could be, but also potentially, right, like, just to kind of create an alliance between all these factions and an understanding between all these factions, and that, you know, moving forward to create a kind of peace between them, you know, and an understanding between them, instead of letting the, I guess, the ways of the old gods and their fight that they had amongst themselves continue through humanity, and to let, you know, them corrupt humanity in those ways. I don't know, but that's kind of where it seems like it might be going, where they're trying to, I guess, through the guise of humanity, you know, get them to understand that even though they have these gifts bestowed upon them through their gods, they're still human, and to kind of overcome those, I guess, differences and to live together, you know, peacefully, kind of a thing. I don't know if maybe that's where they're going. Interesting that they mentioned killing the gods, that that could include killing Bomaro and the soldier who dreams for the Davite, because they aren't on the island, it seems. I mean, maybe, yeah. You know, I don't know. It very well could. I mean, he said, and they need to kill the gods and their prophets. So, I mean, these new whatever could be their prophets as well, too, you know? It's interesting, though, that I mean, what would that mean for the new Ioun? Is the new Ioun their prophet? Is Yaldabaoth going to seek another prophet? You know, because Yeva was going to be the new prophet, but it seems like they were able to save her and convert her away from becoming that and dooming them, you know? I don't know. Interesting. Anyway, let's hear his wrap up here.
For the past few decades, the Foundation has discovered a couple of ancient cities that belong to some lost Bronze Age civilizations, anomalous civilizations that were eventually wiped out by some other force led by the Black Star. Through a series of events, these civilizations became active in the present day, and now the Foundation wanted to find the last of these cities, Adytum, which belonged to the flesh-worshipping Nalka. In order to prevent their lead agents from becoming too intertwined with their research subjects, they tasked an artificial intelligence construct, Xenophon, with leading the research into the Nalka. Xenophon ended up becoming fast friends with Grand Karcist Ioun of the Sarkic, a group descendant from the Nalka, but with no memory beyond being a simple tribe. Through Xenophon's interactions with Ioun, they learned the locations of the burial sites of her 4 clavigars, her seconds in command, and through these burial sites, she learned more and more of what happened to Adytum. Ioun, millennia ago, was a slave of the Deva, but managed to lead a revolt against them thanks to consuming part of a fallen god, the Old Beast. The Old Beast was once Yaldabaoth, part of a pantheon of deities alongside Mechane, the Scarlet King, and the Black Moon. With his newfound divine powers over flesh, Ioun was able to build the Nalkan Empire, but became corrupted by his own power. He continued to feed on the Old Beast, his mind warping and pushing everyone else away. He began to do things that none of his people, including his clavigars, agreed with, including raising the dead to fight for him and attacking innocents. Eventually, he sought to perform a ritual to remove the last of his humanity, granting himself immortality. As part of the ritual, he ripped out his humanity in the form of a small child. This child was stolen away by the clavigars as they fled the city, and she was raised as Ioun. The power-obsessed Ioun eventually went back to Black Adytum alone and sequestered himself down in the tomb, knowing that his stolen piece of divinity would eventually return to him. While waiting, he eventually consumed all of the Old Beast, becoming Yaldabaoth. The new Ioun, along with Xenophon, eventually make their way back to Adytum, burying the 4 clavigars there. She experiences a sweeping assortment of memories as they descend underground, until they eventually reach the Old Beast's tomb. Yaldabaoth is confident that he will consume Ioun, finally achieving true immortality and godhood, but Ioun rejects him. Unfortunately, Yeva, Ioun's second-in-command and adopted daughter, has been unsure of her place in their community, and falls to Yaldabaoth's sway. She stabs Ioun in a way that Ioun cannot heal from, and moves to be absorbed by Yaldabaoth. Ioun, however, manages to convince her that Yaldabaoth doesn't stand for anything the Sarkic do, and is just a fell god seeking to consume all of humanity. Yeva realizes her folly, and stabs Yaldabaoth in a similar way, resulting in the god smashing her body. Ioun heals Yeva, but the place begins to crumble apart, forcing Xenophon to tell them to flee while it stays behind. After they depart, Xenophon overheats its own reactor, resulting in a massive explosion that destroys the entire city. Ioun barely survives getting out, only for Dr. Hussein to pull a gun and shoot Yeva, before being promptly killed himself by Katsaros. Xenophon's mind is downloaded into another shell, and it is introduced to Dr. Hedvig Nussbaum from the Amani Ram Initiative and Dr. Pandora Galanis from the Mamjul and Karar Initiative, along with the administrator of the Foundation. Adytum managed to survive the ordeal thanks to a blood transfusion, rendering her possibly mortal now. The Administrator has gathered them together as they are now at war against the Black Moon, a deity that creeps into people's minds and gives them invented purpose to cause chaos and destruction. It is using the Insurgency, a splinter group of the Foundation designed for mimetic espionage, with their own identities mimetically erased. They're now capable of infiltrating the Foundation unseen, masquerading as practically anyone to gather information, sabotage operations, and carry out the Black Moon's will. With Dr. Aram now taking over the city of Amani Ram as Robert Bumaro, and the Davik Empire in a formal covenant with the Foundation, the first occult war has ended its ceasefire. Where the story goes from here is anyone's guess, but it's certainly not going to be pleasant. The Black Moon, acting through the Administrator, then known as the Black Star, managed to wipe out all 3 of the Bronze Age civilizations.
Yep.
In the modern day, with access to modern weapons and an army of faceless soldiers, there's no telling the level of chaos it can spread. The Administrator doesn't have many allies he trusts by his side at the moment, but Nussbaum, Galanis, Adytum, and Xenophon have all been through their own drastic ordeals and lived to tell the tale. Does the Black Moon howl? I guess we'll find out.
Hey, man. What a great story, man. What a great story so far. I mean, and yeah, it definitely seems like there's got to be more. You know, I feel like we're going to get another arc that's going to talk about, you know, the Administrator is passed and, you know, everything that he went through as the Black Star leading up to the creation of the Foundation. And then I think from there, the story will continue potentially in a new series. I don't know. I feel like we're going to have one more arc to finish up like the past stuff. And then after that, we will jump into what's going on in present time with the occult war going on now and the Foundation trying to recontain everything and recontain the Black Moon. I feel like that's what's going to happen. But maybe we'll just have one more arc that gets into the past and the origins of the Foundation and what the Black Moon's motivations really are, and go from there. The other thing is too, man, is like they're also setting up potentially an even greater story going on with these gods. You know, they just said in the end here that these gods were cast down from heaven. So does that also mean, like, are these supposed to be angels potentially? You know, are there that would tend to lead you to think that there are more gods? Why were they cast down? Were these gods, I mean, there was a war in heaven from what they said. Was the war these gods against something else? Were these 3 or 4 gods fighting amongst themselves and the chaos that ensued caused the other gods that were there to cast them out? Is there just an overall greater god that was like, yo, I'm tired of dealing with your shit, get the fuck out? And again, could these gods be representative of like biblical fallen angels kind of situation? You know, and is that where some of this story is going to lead? Are we going to lead into potentially an even greater overarching thing with going into heaven and maybe even like a multiversal picture of things? And what does that mean and represent? And, you know, I don't know, because again, I have a feeling there's something more going on with like the Scarlet again having imprisoned Yaldbath instead of killing it. Why? Is it because they just couldn't kill it, or is there because killing a god has certain ramifications that could affect, you know, the universe and reality? And maybe that's what, again, the sin is from the Black Moon is that the Black Moon actually did kill a god and wants the destruction of everything. Again, that feels very pattern screamish. So maybe that will also be kind of something that's introduced as moving forward. Maybe the Black Moon is actually some kind of giant pattern screamer god, and all these faceless whole things are pattern screamers essentially that have been, you know, these bodies are just possessed by pattern screamers. Or maybe it is going to be something that's going to tie in more with the Hanged King, which that would be crazy if they're going to bring the Hanged King and Alagata into this. What is that going to mean and represent? You know what I mean? I don't think that's the case though. But yeah, I mean, there's the end of this really kind of opened everything up into a whole other story arc, just asking more questions on where this is going to go. But I mean, it seems like the story's not done. It seems like we've got, you know, at least one whole of the arc of story left to go, again with the Black Star, the Black Moon, the creation of the Foundation, and, you know, potentially the start of this new occult war in present time and where that's going to go, you know? So yeah, Roundhouse cooked again for sure. So I you know, I hope that that is the case. I hope we're going to get another arc and see where the story goes and actually have a full conclusion, you know? And I'm curious to see how long it's going to be before, you know, we get that. Because I mean, I think this last video from the Exploring series was released 5 months ago, so I don't know in relation to when Roundhouse put this, you know, Black Adytum proposal out, you know, when they actually when Roundhouse put it out, you know what I'm saying, in comparison. You know, so who knows how long it'll be before we get the next chapter, if indeed there is going to be one, which it seems like it. So I'm excited for it. I would love to see some more, but I mean, this is up there as far as one of the great SCP universes and stories, man. I love stuff like this, very detailed, very intricate. A few things here and there that, you know, I question, especially with the Mechans and their technology, but it is what it is. But maybe some of those things will get explained as we go along in the future more, you know. But great characters, great story. And yeah, I'm interested to see where it's gonna go. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Links will be down below in the description as always to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. If you enjoyed this video of mine, consider leaving a like and a sub. It helps me and the channel grow, and it lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see some more. If you'd like to join us as I do these videos live with my YouTube members, there's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. So you want to take your sport to the next level, you can check all that stuff out. If you are still watching here at the very end, I greatly appreciate it. I know this is going to be a longer video here. It's going to be several hours, at least 3 if not 4. I don't remember when I started it here, but my computer also crashed, so I had to kind of start up here again. But definitely going to be a longer one, so I greatly appreciate it if you're watching all the way through. Means a lot. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see you guys on the next one.